The year was 1920. An old man sat on the weathered porch of his ranch house in Tucson, Arizona. His name was Nathan Thornhill, and at 76 years old, his body bore the marks of a life hard-lived. The sun painted long shadows across the desert floor as it began its descent behind the Chiricahua Mountains. Beside him, a young man of 16 fidgeted with anticipation. Samuel was his grandson, home from boarding school for the summer. The boy's eyes fell upon something unusual around his grandfather's wrist, a leather bracelet, worn smooth by decades of handling, decorated with symbols he did not recognize. Samuel reached out, touching the ancient leather with curious fingers. The question came naturally. Why did his grandfather wear an Apache bracelet? Where had it come from? Nathan's weathered hand closed around the bracelet. His eyes grew distant, traveling back through 42 years of memory. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of a story too long untold. "This is the tale of a blood debt," he said quietly, "and how I learned the true meaning of redemption." The old man's gaze fixed on the mountains, and the years fell away. 1878. The Arizona Territory was a land of contradictions. Beauty and brutality existed side by side. The earth was red as dried blood. The sky stretched endless and merciless, and between them, men fought for survival. Nathan Thornhill was 34 years old that spring. His ranch sat on 160 acres of hard-won land at the edge of Apache territory. The boundaries were unclear, drawn more by fear than law. But the land was his. He had the papers to prove it. The Homestead Act of 1862 had promised free land to any man willing to work it for 5 years. Nathan had done more than work it. He had bled for it, sweated for it, nearly died for it. In 1871, he had fulfilled the requirements. The deed was signed. The land belonged to Nathan Thornhill, but ownership meant nothing without the strength to defend it. The ranch was modest, a 2-room cabin built from pine logs he had hauled down from the mountains himself, a corral for 4 horses, a well that had taken him 3 months to dig through rock-hard earth, 40 acres planted with wheat and corn. The rest was grazing land for the small herd of cattle that represented his entire fortune. Every day followed the same pattern. Wake before dawn, check the irrigation channels he had carved into the desert floor, feed the horses, mend whatever had broken the day before. There was always something broken: a fence post, a wagon wheel, a piece of his own worn-out body. This particular morning, Nathan stood at his irrigation system, studying the angle of the wooden trough. Water was life in the desert. Every drop mattered. The slope had to be precise. Too steep and the water rushed past the crops. Too shallow and it pooled uselessly at the source. He made adjustments with hands that knew the work without thinking. These were the same hands that had loaded rifles at Gettysburg, that had dug graves at Antietam, that had held his dying wife 2 years ago. Margaret. Even now her absence hit him like a physical blow. She had been his anchor, his reason for building instead of destroying, and their son Thomas, only 4 years old when the plague took him. The boy's laughter still echoed in Nathan's memory during quiet moments. He had buried them both on the hill behind the house. 2 oak saplings marked their graves. The trees were growing strong now. Sometimes Nathan wondered if they drew strength from the bodies beneath. The thought should have disturbed him. Instead, it brought a strange comfort. Every evening, Nathan performed the same ritual. He would sit at his rough wooden table, open his Bible to whatever page fell open, read by lamplight until his eyes burned. Then he would look at the daguerreotype on the wall. Margaret and Thomas, frozen in time, forever young, forever gone. After that came the journal. Day 213 since they left, he would write. Today I repaired the stable door. The wheat is growing well. I am still here. Still here, as if mere existence was an accomplishment. Perhaps it was. The sound of approaching horses shattered the morning silence. Nathan straightened, one hand moving instinctively to the Winchester rifle leaning against the fence post. 3 riders emerged from the heat shimmer on the horizon. He recognized them immediately. Silas Blackwood and his men. Nothing good ever came from Blackwood's visits. Blackwood was 45, with a face carved from the same unforgiving rock as the desert around them. A thick black beard failed to hide the scar that ran from his temple to his jaw. His eyes were the color of dirty ice. He had been a Confederate soldier once, the kind who never stopped fighting even after the war ended. The 3 men reined in their horses at Nathan's fence line, close enough to be threatening, not quite close enough to be trespassing. "Thornhill," Blackwood said. His voice carried the slow drawl of Texas. "We need to talk about your land." Nathan said nothing. Silence was often the best response to men like Blackwood. "I have papers," Blackwood continued, pulling a yellowed document from his saddlebag. "Old papers. From before the Mexican War. This land was granted to a family named Morales in 1845. I bought their claim." Nathan's jaw tightened. That claim died with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848. When Mexico ceded this territory to the United States, all previous land grants became void. My homestead papers are legal, registered with the federal government in 1866. Blackwood smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Legal papers are only as good as the man who holds them. I am making you a generous offer, Thornhill. $500 for your 160 acres. That is more than fair. The land is not for sale." The smile vanished from Blackwood's face like sun behind a storm cloud. "Then let me be more direct. I know there is copper in these hills. A mining company out of San Francisco is willing to pay $10,000 for mineral rights. I intend to have those rights, one way or another." Nathan's hand tightened on the rifle. He did not raise it. "Not yet. Get off my land, Blackwood." For a long moment the 2 men stared at each other. The tension stretched thin as wire. Behind Blackwood, his 2 hired guns shifted in their saddles. Their hands drifted toward their weapons. Then Blackwood laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "Fine. Have it your way. I am giving you 2 weeks, Thornhill. 2 weeks to reconsider. After that, well, the desert is a dangerous place. Accidents happen. Men disappear." The 3 riders wheeled their horses and departed in a cloud of dust. Nathan watched until they vanished. His hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage. This land was all he had left, the last piece of the future he had built with Margaret. If he lost it, he lost everything. That evening, as the sun bled red across the western sky, Nathan stood at Margaret's grave. He spoke to her sometimes, not in prayer exactly, just words released into the empty air. "They want to take it," he said quietly. "The land we built together. I do not know if I can stop them." The wind whispered through the young oak trees. It carried no answers. 20 miles to the east, in the shadow of the Chiricahua Mountains, another life hung in the balance. Ayanna moved through the desert like a ghost. Her moccasins made no sound on the stone. Her eyes scanned the landscape with the practiced gaze of a hunter. She was 26 years old, the daughter of Chief Cochise, though her father had been dead for 4 years now. That heritage was both blessing and burden. The people expected greatness from her, expected her to carry forward his legacy of wisdom and strength. Today she carried a different burden, a leather bag filled with tools for gathering medicine. Her people needed osha root, a rare plant that grew only in certain rocky crevices. Without it, 3 of the elders would not survive the summer. Their lungs were failing. The root was their only hope. Ayanna's younger brother Nahato had begged to come with her. At 9 years old, the boy was fearless and stubborn, too much like their father. She had refused him. The journey was too dangerous. The area she needed to search lay near the boundary where white settlers had begun to appear with increasing frequency. White men meant trouble. Always. She climbed higher into the rocks, searching for the telltale leaves of the osha plant. The sun hammered down without mercy. Sweat traced lines through the dust on her skin. Her water skin was half empty. She would need to turn back soon. Then she heard it. Voices, shouting. The sound of horses moving fast. Ayana dropped low behind a boulder. Training from childhood kicked in automatically. Never reveal yourself. Observe first. Act only when necessary. 3 white men on horseback burst into the clearing below her position. They were chasing someone. Another rider, this one clearly Apache, a young hunter from her tribe. She recognized him. His name was Swift Arrow. He was only 17. The white men caught him quickly. Their horses were stronger, better fed. They dragged Swift Arrow from his mount. He fell hard, tried to rise. One of the men kicked him back down. Ayana's hand moved to the knife at her belt. Every instinct screamed at her to help. But 3 armed men against 1 woman with a knife? That was not bravery. That was suicide. And if she died here, who would bring the medicine back to the elders? She forced herself to remain still, to watch, to remember. The leader of the white men, a big man with a black beard, leaned down over Swift Arrow. "You people need to learn," he said. His voice carried clearly in the desert air. "This land does not belong to you anymore. Stay in your camps. Stay away from our settlements. Next time we catch one of you out here, we will not be so merciful." Merciful. The word was a cruel joke. They were beating Swift Arrow mercilessly. Fists and boots. The sickening sound of impact. The young hunter tried to fight back at first, then he only tried to protect his head. Finally they stopped. Swift Arrow lay motionless in the dirt. Blood pooled beneath him. "Tell your chief," the bearded man said. "Tell him to keep his people away from Thornhill's land. We are claiming everything from here to the mountains." The 3 men mounted their horses and rode away. They left Swift Arrow lying there like discarded trash. Ayana waited until the sound of hoofbeats faded completely. Then she scrambled down from the rocks. Her hands shook as she turned Swift Arrow over. He was still alive. Barely. His breathing came in shallow gasps. Blood ran from his mouth and nose. She worked quickly, tearing strips from her buckskin dress to bind the worst wounds. Used herbs from her bag to slow the bleeding, but there was too much damage. Internal injuries she could not see, could not heal. Swift Arrow's eyes focused on her face. He tried to speak. Each word came out as a wet whisper. "They said Thornhill," he managed, warning him, taking his land. "Tell him to be careful." "Who is Thornhill?" Ayana asked. But Swift Arrow's eyes had already glazed. His final breath rattled out. His hand, which had been clutching her arm, went slack. Ayana sat back on her heels. Grief and rage warred within her. Another young life ended. Another family that would weep tonight. And for what? For land? For greed? She did not know who this Thornhill was. Another white settler, presumably. But those men had threatened him. That meant Thornhill was also in danger. Perhaps he did not even know it yet. The thought stirred something in her, a sense of obligation that went against all logic. Why should she care if a white man lived or died? Her people had been driven from their lands, herded like animals toward distant reservations. Her father had died fighting to protect them, but her father had also taught her something else. Judge each person by their actions, he had said, not by the color of their skin. Good people exist in every tribe. So do evil ones. Ayana gathered her things. She would have to come back for Swift Arrow's body later, with help. For now, she needed to find the OSHA route. The elders were depending on her. She climbed deeper into the rocks. The sun was past its peak now. Afternoon shadows stretched across the stone. She searched with desperate focus, knowing time was running short. There. Finally. The distinctive leaves of the OSHA plant growing from a crevice. Ayana knelt carefully. The roots had to be harvested properly, or they would be useless. She pulled her digging stick from her bag and began to work the hard earth. The work required all her concentration, which is why she did not notice the snake until it was too late. The western diamondback had been coiled in the shade of the very rock she knelt beside, 6 feet of scaled muscle and venom. Ayana's movement disturbed it. The warning rattle came half a heartbeat before the strike. She tried to pull back. Not fast enough. The snake's fangs punched through the buckskin covering her left calf. Twin points of white-hot agony. Ayanna screamed. The sound tore from her throat unbidden. She fell backward, away from the snake. Her hands scrabbled at her leg. Already she could feel the venom spreading, fire in her veins, her heart hammering too fast. The snake slithered away into the rocks, its job done. Nature cared nothing for intent or justice. The snake was only protecting itself. Ayanna was only gathering medicine, and now she was going to die. Her hands shook as she tore a strip from her dress, tied it tight above the bite. The pain was incredible, growing worse by the second. Her leg began to swell. The skin around the puncture wounds turned dark purple. Ayanna tried to stand. Her leg would not support her weight. She collapsed back into the dirt. Each breath came harder than the last. The venom was working fast. Too fast. She thought of Nahato. Her little brother would be devastated. She thought of her grandmother, who had already lost so much. She thought of the elders who needed the medicine clutched in her hand. "I am sorry," she whispered to the empty sky. "I tried." Then she heard it. The sound of a horse, moving quickly, coming closer. Hope flared, then died just as quickly. If it was one of those white men coming back, she was dead anyway. If it was a friend, they would not have medicine for snakebite. Either way, the ending was the same. The rider appeared over the ridge, a single man on a gray horse. He was white, broad shoulders, weathered face. He wore simple rancher's clothes and carried a rifle across his saddle. The man pulled his horse to a stop, stared down at her. His face showed surprise, then calculation. She could almost see his thoughts. An Apache woman, injured, alone. He could ride away, pretend he had seen nothing. That would be the safe choice, the smart choice. Ayanna looked up at him. She could not speak English well, but she managed one word. "Please." The man's jaw tightened. For a long moment he did not move. Then he swung down from his horse, dropped to his knees beside her. His hands moved to her leg, examining the wound. She saw recognition in his eyes. He knew what he was looking at. "Snakebite," he said. His voice was rough but not unkind. "Recent. Maybe 5 minutes ago?" Ayanna nodded weakly. The world was starting to spin. Her vision blurred at the edges. The man looked at her face, really looked at her. And she saw something in his eyes that surprised her. Not hate, not indifference, but a deep, weary sadness, as if he carried his own burden of loss. "My name is Nathan Thornhill," he said quietly. "I am going to help you. This will hurt, but if I do not do it, you will die." Thornhill. The name Swift Arrow had tried to warn her about. This was the man those others wanted to hurt. And now he was here, trying to save her. Ayanna did not understand why. She only knew that death was coming, and this stranger was the only thing standing between her and the darkness. Nathan's hands moved with practiced efficiency. He pulled a knife from his belt, held it over his small fire to sterilize the blade. Then he looked at her one more time. "I was an army medic," he said, "during the war. I have done this before. Trust me." Ayanna could barely focus on his words, but she understood his tone, the quiet confidence. She nodded. Nathan cut away the strip of dress she had tied above the wound, replaced it with his own belt, pulled it tighter than she thought possible. The pain made her cry out. "I know," he said softly. "I am sorry. But it has to be this tight or the venom will spread to your heart." Then he did something that made her eyes go wide with shock and fear. He bent down and placed his mouth directly over the snakebite, his lips sealed against her skin. She felt suction, pressure. Then he pulled back and spat a mouthful of blood and venom onto the ground. He did it again and again, each time drawing out more poison, each time spitting it away. His face was set in grim concentration. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cooling evening air. Ayanna wanted to tell him to stop, that he was risking his own life. If he had any cut in his mouth, any small wound, the venom would enter his bloodstream. He would die just as surely as she would. but she could not form the words. Her tongue felt thick. Her thoughts scattered like leaves in wind. Nathan worked for what felt like hours, but was probably only 15 minutes. Finally he sat back. His lips were numb, tingling. He could taste copper and something bitter. The venom was affecting him, not enough to kill, but enough to make his head swim. He looked at Ayana's face. Her color was slightly better. The swelling had not gotten worse. Maybe he had removed enough of the poison. Maybe she would live. Or maybe they would both die here. Nathan swayed, caught himself. His vision doubled, tripled. The desert tilted sideways. He heard a strange ringing in his ears. His last thought before darkness took him was of Margaret, and how she would have been proud that he had tried to save someone, even if it killed him. Both bodies lay motionless in the sand. The sun continued its descent toward the horizon. Long shadows crept across the rocks, and in those shadows other figures appeared. 5 Apache warriors materialized from the landscape like spirits. They had been tracking Ayana, worried when she did not return. Now they stood in a half-circle, staring down at the scene before them. A white man, lying unconscious beside one of their healers, blood on his mouth, the signs of snake bite on Ayana's leg. One of the younger warriors, a man named Red Hawk, raised his rifle. His finger tightened on the trigger. The white man was defenseless. This was justice for all the wrongs committed against their people. But an older warrior named Gray Wolf caught his arm. "Wait," he said quietly. "Look more carefully." They looked, saw the tourniquet, saw the knife still lying in the dirt, its blade dark with blood, saw the pattern of spit stains on the ground. Understanding dawned slowly. "He saved her," Gray Wolf said, wonder in his voice. "He sucked out the venom, risked his own life to save an Apache woman he did not even know." Ayana's young brother Nahato pushed forward. He had disobeyed his sister and followed anyway. Now he dropped to his knees beside her, pressed his ear to her chest. "She is alive," he said. "Her heart beats." Gray Wolf moved to the white man, checked his pulse. "This one lives as well, but he is very weak. The poison has entered his blood." Red Hawk spat on the ground. "So let him die. He is white, our enemy." Gray Wolf turned to face the younger man. His expression was stern. "If we let him die after he saved Ayana, what does that make us? Are we so consumed by hate that we cannot recognize honor when we see it?" "He is right," said another voice. They all turned. Ayana's grandmother, a woman of 68 years with a face like carved wood, had arrived with the rescue party. She walked slowly to where Ayana lay, knelt beside her granddaughter with joints that creaked like old leather. The old woman examined Ayana briefly. Then she looked at Nathan. Her eyes were sharp despite her age. "This man has given my granddaughter her life. We owe him a debt, a blood debt, and we will honor it." Red Hawk started to protest. The grandmother raised one weathered hand. The gesture carried absolute authority. "We take them both back to our camp," she said. "We will heal them both. And when the white man wakes, I will hear his story. Then I will decide if he lives or dies." Gray Wolf nodded. He gestured to 2 of the warriors. They fashioned a travois from branches and blankets, laid Ayana gently upon it. Then they made another for Nathan. As they began the long journey back to the hidden Apache camp, Gray Wolf looked down at the unconscious white man. He noticed something, a scar on Nathan's wrist, old and faded, the kind of mark left by military shackles. "This one has seen war," Gray Wolf murmured, "and loss. I can see it in his face." The group moved through the gathering darkness. Behind them, the sun finally surrendered to night. Stars emerged, cold and distant. The desert held its secrets close. In the Apache camp, preparations were being made. The healing wickiup was cleared. Herbs were gathered. Water was heated. The entire tribe would know by morning that something unprecedented had happened. A white man had saved one of their own, and now they held his life in their hands. The question that would haunt them all through the long night was simple but profound. What do we owe to one who shows mercy when mercy is not required? What do we owe to an enemy who proves he is not an enemy after all? The answer would change everything. For Nathan Thornhill, for Ayanna, for two peoples who had known only conflict. In that moment, as warriors carried two unconscious bodies through the darkness, a bridge was being built, fragile as spider silk, strong as the human need to believe in goodness. Whether that bridge would hold was a question only tomorrow could answer. The healing wickiup smelled of sage and smoke. Firelight flickered against walls made of bent willow branches covered with animal hides. Two bodies lay on opposite sides of the space, separated by 10 feet of packed earth floor. Between them burned a small fire, its flames dancing to a rhythm only they understood. Ayanna's grandmother worked through the night. Her name was White Painted Woman, given to her at birth because she had survived when no one expected her to live. Now, at 68, she was the keeper of healing knowledge. Her hands moved with the certainty of decades of practice. She ground echinacea root into powder, mixed it with water from the sacred spring, lifted Ayanna's head and poured the mixture between her granddaughter's lips. Most of it ran down her chin, but some went down her throat. That would have to be enough. Then the old woman turned to the white man. She stood over him for a long moment, studying his face. Even unconscious, he looked troubled. Lines of pain and grief were carved deep around his eyes and mouth. White Painted Woman knelt beside him, placed her palm against his forehead. Fever burned there, but not dangerously high. The venom was in his system, yes, but his body was fighting it. He was strong, a survivor. She prepared willow bark tea for him, forced it between his lips the same way she had with Ayanna. The man's throat worked reflexively. He swallowed without waking. Grey Wolf entered the wickiup, moving silently despite his size. He was 45 years old and had fought in more battles than he cared to remember. His face bore the scars to prove it. "How are they?" he asked quietly. The old woman did not look up from her work. "The girl will live. She is young and strong." The venom did not reach her heart. "But this one," she gestured to Nathan, "this one is more complicated. He took in less poison, but he is older. His body has known more suffering. It shows in the way he breathes, in the tension that will not leave his muscles even in sleep." Grey Wolf moved closer to Nathan. In the firelight he could see more details. The calluses on the man's hands spoke of hard labor. The scars on his knuckles told of fights survived, but it was the mark on his wrist that drew Grey Wolf's attention. He had seen such marks before, on soldiers, on men who had been chained. "This man has been to war," Grey Wolf said. White Painted Woman nodded. "Many white men have been to war. Their great conflict, the one where they killed each other by the thousands. It ended only 13 years ago. Many still carry those wounds." From outside came the sound of voices. The camp was stirring. Word had spread quickly. A white man lay in their healing wickiup. The reactions were predictable. Some wanted him driven out immediately. Others wanted him dead. A few, very few, were willing to wait and see. Nahato pushed through the entrance. The 9-year-old boy's face was streaked with tears. He ran to his sister's side, dropped to his knees beside her. "Will she die?" His voice broke on the words. White Painted Woman placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "No, little one. Your sister will live. She is resting now. Her body is fighting the poison. By morning she will wake." The boy looked across the fire at Nathan. "And him? The white man who saved her?" The old woman followed his gaze. "That remains to be seen. He risked much to help Ayanna. Whether his body can survive what he took into himself, I cannot say. We will know by dawn." Nahato stared at Nathan with an expression too complex for his young face. Confusion, gratitude, suspicion, fear. How could a white man, one of the people who had killed their mother, be the one who saved his sister? The night stretched on. White-painted woman kept her vigil, checking both patients regularly. She changed the poultice on Ayana's leg 3 times, fed both of them small amounts of healing tea whenever they showed signs of stirring. Just before dawn, when the world hung suspended between darkness and light, Nathan began to dream. Or perhaps it was not a dream. Perhaps it was memory, surfacing like a body from deep water. He was back in Pennsylvania. The year was 1863. The Battle of Gettysburg raged around him. Cannon fire shook the earth. The air tasted of gunpowder and blood. Nathan moved through the chaos, searching for wounded. He was 20 years old and had been an Army medic for less than a year. Nothing in his training had prepared him for this, the sheer scale of death and suffering. A soldier lay screaming, his leg blown off below the knee. Nathan dropped beside him, hands already moving. "Tourniquet first. Stop the bleeding." The man's screams turned to whimpers, then silence. Another life that would not see tomorrow. The memory shifted, jumped forward. Now he was in a field hospital tent, days after the battle. The dead had been buried. The wounded filled every available space. The smell was indescribable, blood and infection and gangrene. Nathan worked without stopping, amputating limbs, digging out bullets, sewing torn flesh back together. His hands shook from exhaustion. His mind was numb with horror, but he kept working because the alternative was to let them die. One of the soldiers grabbed his arm. The man's face was gray with pain. His gut wound was fatal. They both knew it. "What is your name, Doc?" the soldier whispered. "Nathan Thornhill." "Irish?" Nathan nodded. "My father came over in '50. The soldier smiled weakly. "Me too. Came to the promised land. Found hell instead." "Rest now," Nathan said. "I will give you something for the pain." The soldier's grip tightened. "Do not let me die alone, please. I do not want to die alone." Nathan stayed, held the man's hand, watched the life fade from his eyes, added another face to the collection that haunted his dreams. The memory shifted again. Forward through time. The war was over. Nathan had survived. He made his way west, found Margaret, built a life. For a while he thought the ghosts might leave him alone. Then came 1876, the plague that took his wife and son. Nathan had tried everything he knew, every remedy, every prayer. Nothing worked. He held Thomas as the boy's small body convulsed with fever, felt Margaret's hand go cold in his, and he was powerless. Again, always powerless to stop death when it came calling. In the wickiup, Nathan's body jerked. His lips moved, forming words no one could hear. "I am sorry. I am sorry. I could not save them." White-painted woman leaned close, wiped the sweat from his forehead with a cloth dipped in cool water. "Peace," she murmured in Apache. "Your battles are not here. Rest." But Nathan could not rest. The memories held him in their grip. He relived every failure, every death, every moment when he had not been fast enough, skilled enough, strong enough to save someone who needed saving. Until finally, mercifully, the memories faded. Nathan sank into deeper sleep. His breathing evened out. The tension in his body eased. White-painted woman sat back. She had seen this before. Men who carried too much death. Their spirits were heavy with it. This white man was no different. He had saved Ayana not because he was noble, but because he could not bear to let another person die if he had the power to prevent it. That made him dangerous in a different way. Men who cared nothing for their own survival often did reckless things. Dawn broke over the Chiricahua Mountains. Light filtered through the smoke hole at the top of the wickiup. Ayana stirred first. Her eyes fluttered open. For a moment she was disoriented. Then memory returned in a rush. The snake. The venom. The white man who had saved her. She turned her head, searching. Found him lying on the other side of the fire. Still unconscious. Still fighting. "Grandmother?" Ayana's voice came out as a croak. White-painted woman was at her side instantly. Do not try to sit up yet, you are still weak. The man, is he alive? For now. He took much poison into his body for you. Whether he will wake, I cannot say. Ayanna stared at Nathan across the flames. Why did he do it? Why would a white man risk death for an Apache? That is the question we all want answered, the old woman replied. When he wakes, we will ask him. If he wakes. Through the morning, the camp stirred to life. Women tended fires. Children played in the dirt. Warriors checked weapons and prepared for the day's hunting. But everyone's attention kept drifting back to the healing wickiup. Grey Wolf stood outside, arms crossed, preventing anyone from entering. Only immediate family and the healers were allowed inside. The rest would have to wait. Red Hawk approached, his face set in angry lines. I demand to speak with the council, he said. That white man should not be here. He is a threat to us all. Grey Wolf met his gaze calmly. He saved Ayanna's life. That makes him a guest, not a prisoner. He will be treated as such until he proves otherwise. He is white. Red Hawk spat the word. They are our enemies. They killed Chief Cochise. They drove us from our lands. And you want to nurse one back to health? I want to honor the debt we owe, Grey Wolf replied. If we let him die after what he did, we are no better than those who killed our chief. We become the monsters they claim we are. Other warriors had gathered now, drawn by the raised voices. The argument threatened to escalate. Then a new voice cut through the tension. Enough. Everyone turned. Ayanna stood in the entrance to the wickiup. She swayed, barely able to stand. White-painted woman supported her from behind. This man saved my life, Ayanna said. Her voice was weak but clear. I was dying. The venom was in my heart. He put his mouth to the wound and drew out the poison. He knew it could kill him. He did it anyway. She looked around at the gathered warriors, met each man's eyes in turn. You ask why a white man would do this? I do not know, but I will not let him die because of your hatred. If you want to kill him, you will have to kill me first. The camp fell silent. No one moved. Ayanna, daughter of Chief Cochise, had spoken. To challenge her now would be to dishonor her father's memory. Red Hawk was the first to turn away. He stalked off, his shoulders tight with anger. But he did not argue further. The others dispersed slowly, returning to their tasks. The crisis had passed. For now. Grey Wolf helped Ayanna back into the wickiup. You should not have come out, he said gently. You are still healing. Ayanna lowered herself carefully back onto her blankets. I am healing because of him. She nodded toward Nathan. The least I can do is defend him when he cannot defend himself. You are your father's daughter, Grey Wolf said with approval. Cochise would be proud. After Grey Wolf left, Ayanna lay on her side watching Nathan. In the growing daylight she could see him more clearly. His face was weathered from years in the sun. His hair was brown, streaked with gray. Strong features but worn down by hardship. She noticed his hands. They were a working man's hands, scarred and calloused, the hands of someone who built things rather than destroyed them. Who are you? She whispered in Apache. What pain do you carry that makes you willing to die for a stranger? As if in answer, Nathan's eyes opened. For a moment he stared at the wickiup ceiling, completely lost. Then awareness returned. He was in an Apache camp. He had saved a woman from snakebite. He had risked his own life to do it. Nathan tried to sit up. His body protested violently. Every muscle ached. His head pounded. His mouth tasted like he had been chewing on pennies. Slowly he managed to prop himself up on one elbow. His gaze found Ayanna across the fire. She was awake, watching him. Relief flooded through him. She had survived. That meant the venom extraction had worked. She would live. Ayanna spoke in Apache. Nathan did not understand the words, but her tone was clear. Gratitude. Wonder. Question. He replied in English, knowing she likely would not understand. I am glad you are alive. That is all that matters. White-painted woman entered, carrying a wooden bowl of broth. She stopped short when she saw Nathan awake. Her lined face revealed nothing. She studied him for a long moment, as if weighing his soul. Then she crossed to him, offered the bowl. Her gesture was clear. "Drink." Nathan took the bowl with shaking hands. The broth was thin but hot. It tasted of herbs he could not identify. He drank it all, feeling warmth spread through his chest. The old woman took the empty bowl, spoke in Apache. The words meant nothing to Nathan, but her hand gestures filled in some gaps. She pointed at Ayanna, then at Nathan, brought her hands together. "You saved her," Nathan said, understanding. "Yes, I could not leave her to die." White-painted woman's expression softened slightly. She called out toward the entrance. A moment later, Grey Wolf entered. The warrior was an imposing figure, tall and broad-shouldered, with a face that had seen too much violence, but his eyes were intelligent, thoughtful. "You speak English?" Nathan asked. Grey Wolf nodded. "Some. I learned from traders, from soldiers, before the wars got worse." Nathan tried to stand, failed. Grey Wolf made a gesture. "Stay down. You are still weak. The poison is not completely gone from your blood." "How long have I been here?" 2 days. Nathan's eyes widened. 2 days? I need to get back to my ranch. There are men who want to take my land, if I am not there to defend it. Grey Wolf held up a hand. "Your land will still be there. Rest first. Heal. Then we will talk about what comes next." Nathan wanted to argue, but exhaustion pulled at him like a physical weight. His eyes drifted closed despite his best efforts to stay awake. Grey Wolf looked at white-painted woman. She nodded. "He will recover. His body is strong. His spirit is damaged, but strong." "What do you sense in him?" Grey Wolf asked. "Pain," the old woman replied. "Great pain. He has lost people he loved. Many people. He carries their ghosts with him everywhere. When he looks at Ayanna, he does not see an Apache woman. He sees another chance to save someone, to make up for all the ones he could not save. That makes him unpredictable. No, it makes him human." Grey Wolf considered this. Outside, the camp had returned to its normal rhythms. But everything had changed. They had a white man among them, an outsider who had proven himself willing to sacrifice for one of their own. The question now was what to do with him, how to balance the debt they owed against the danger his presence represented. Every day he stayed increased the risk that soldiers might come looking for him, or that he might see something he should not see and report it to the authorities. Yet honor demanded they repay the debt. Apache culture was built on such obligations. To ignore them would be to lose part of what made them Apache. That evening, the council gathered. 15 warriors sat in a circle around the fire. The debate raged for hours. Some argued Nathan should be sent away as soon as he could walk, given supplies and pointed toward the nearest settlement. The debt would be considered paid. Others wanted guarantees. He should swear an oath never to reveal the location of their camp, never to speak of what he saw here. Red Hawk, predictably, argued for death. "The only good white man is a dead white man," he said. "We have all seen what they do, what they have done to our people. This one may seem different, but he is not. He will betray us at the first opportunity." Grey Wolf spoke last. His words carried weight. "I have fought white men for 20 years, he said. "I have killed many of them. I do not love them. I do not trust them. But this man, Nathan Thornhill, he did something I have never seen before. He risked his life for an Apache. Not because he had to, not because someone paid him, but because it was the right thing to do." He paused, looking around the circle. "If we kill him for that, we prove Red Hawk right. We prove that Apaches cannot recognize honor even when it saves one of our own. Is that who we want to be?" The argument continued. Voices rose and fell. But slowly a consensus emerged. Nathan would be allowed to stay until he healed. Then he would be escorted to the edge of Apache territory and released. In exchange, he would swear to keep their locations secret, to never lead soldiers here, to leave them in peace. It was not perfect, but it was a solution everyone could accept. When Grey Wolf returned to the healing wickiup to inform White-Painted Woman of the decision, he found Ayanna awake and sitting up. She had been listening to the debate from inside her shelter. "I want to help him," she said. Grey Wolf frowned. "You are still healing yourself." "I know. But he saved me. I cannot just lie here while others decide his fate." She paused. "Also, I want to understand why he did it. What makes a white man different from the others?" "That is dangerous curiosity," Grey Wolf warned. "Understanding leads to connection. Connection leads to caring. And caring for white men has destroyed many of our people." Ayanna met his gaze steadily. "Or perhaps it is the only path forward. Father believed different peoples could coexist. That is why he signed the treaty. He died believing peace was possible. Your father was betrayed. But his dream was not wrong." Ayanna's voice carried conviction beyond her years. "If one white man can be good, others can be too. Maybe this Nathan Thornhill is proof of that. Maybe he is the beginning of something better." Grey Wolf wanted to argue, to protect her from the disappointment that would inevitably come. But looking at her face, so like her father's in its stubborn hope, he found he could not crush that hope. Not yet. "As you wish," he said finally, "but be careful. Hope is a dangerous thing to carry in times like these." After he left, Ayanna lay back down. Across the fire, Nathan slept restlessly. Even in sleep, his face showed no peace. Whatever dreams visited him, they were not gentle ones. She wondered about his story, about the losses that carved such deep lines in his face, about what had brought him to this moment, kneeling beside a dying Apache woman in the middle of nowhere. Tomorrow, she decided, she would find a way to talk to him, to understand him, to learn if her father's dream of coexistence was truly possible or just the fantasy of an old chief who wanted too much. Outside, the stars wheeled overhead. The desert night was cold and clear. And in the healing wickiup, two people from two different worlds lay separated by a few feet of dirt floor and a lifetime of history. But the bridge between them, fragile as it was, had begun to form. Morning arrived with the desert's characteristic transformation from cold to heat in less than an hour. Nathan woke to find himself alone in the wickiup except for White-Painted Woman, who sat grinding herbs with a stone mortar. The rhythmic sound had a meditative quality. He tried to sit up. This time his body cooperated better than the day before. The old woman glanced at him, nodded once, and continued her work. After a moment she poured water from a clay vessel into a wooden cup and brought it to him. Nathan drank gratefully. The water was cool and tasted faintly of minerals. When he finished, he attempted to speak. "Thank you for helping me. I know your people have no reason to trust a white man." White-Painted Woman tilted her head, studying him. She spoke in Apache, her voice like wind through dry grass. Nathan caught nothing except the tone, which seemed neither hostile nor welcoming, simply observant. The entrance flap moved aside. Ayanna entered, moving slowly but without assistance. She had bathed and changed clothes. Her long black hair hung loose down her back. The wound on her leg was bandaged with clean cloth. She saw Nathan awake and stopped. For a long moment they simply looked at each other. Two people who had shared a brush with death and somehow survived. Ayanna said something to her grandmother in Apache. The old woman responded, gathered her things, and left the wickiup. Now they were alone. Ayanna lowered herself carefully to sit across the fire from Nathan. She tried English, the words coming slowly and deliberately. "You are better?" Nathan nodded. "Yes, weak, but better. And you?" "I live, because of you." She touched her leg. "The poison was going to my heart. You stopped it." Nathan looked down at his hands. "I am glad it worked. I was not certain it would." "Why?" Ayanna leaned forward slightly. "Why you helped me. White man and Apache are enemies." Nathan took a long breath, considering his answer. "Because letting someone die when I can help is not something I can do anymore." He met her eyes. I have seen too much death. I have caused too much death. When I saw you lying there, I could not walk away." Ayana's brow furrowed as she worked through his words. Her English was limited, but she grasped the essential meaning. "You were soldier?" "Yes. In the war between the northern and southern states. I was a medic. I tried to save men who had been shot, blown apart. Mostly I failed." The simple statement carried a weight of grief that transcended language barriers. Ayana understood loss. Every Apache understood loss. "I lose mother," she said quietly. 4 years ago. White soldiers come. There was fighting. She was trying to protect me and my brother. A bullet found her instead." Nathan's face went pale. "I am sorry. Truly sorry." "Why sorry? You did not shoot her?" "No. But I wore the same uniform once. I followed orders from men who saw your people as obstacles to be removed." Nathan's voice hardened with self-recrimination. "I told myself I was just trying to survive, that I was not responsible for the things happening around me, but that was a coward's excuse." Ayana studied him with new intensity. This white man carried guilt as a constant companion. It was written in every line of his face, audible in every word he spoke. Before she could respond, Grey Wolf entered. He looked between them, assessing the situation. Then he spoke to Ayana in Apache. She replied, gesturing toward Nathan. A brief exchange followed. Grey Wolf turned to Nathan. "The council has decided. You may stay until your strength returns. Then we will escort you to the edge of our territory. You will promise never to reveal this camp's location to soldiers or settlers." Nathan nodded immediately. "I give you my word. I will tell no one where you are or how many of you there are." "Words are easy." Grey Wolf's expression remained neutral. "Keeping them is harder, especially for white men." "I have broken many promises in my life," Nathan said quietly. "But not this one. You saved me when you had every reason to let me die. I will not repay that with betrayal." Something in Nathan's tone must have convinced Grey Wolf. The warrior's stance relaxed slightly. "Good. For now, rest. Heal. When you are strong enough to walk, we will talk more." After Grey Wolf left, Ayana remained. She seemed to be wrestling with a decision. Finally she spoke again. "I want to learn English better. You teach me?" Nathan blinked in surprise. "You want me to teach you English?" "Yes. And I teach you Apache. Fair trade." Her lips curved in the ghost of a smile. "Maybe if we understand words, we understand people." Nathan found himself returning the smile. It felt strange on his face, like a muscle he had forgotten how to use. "That seems wise. Yes, I will teach you." They began that very afternoon. Nathan would point to objects around the wickiup and say their English names. Ayana would repeat them, then provide the Apache equivalent. Fire became Dlo, water became Tu, sky became Yaita. The lessons were punctuated by long silences as both students and teachers caught their breath and processed new information. But gradually, haltingly, understanding began to form. Over the next 3 days, Nathan's strength returned. He was able to walk short distances, to help with small tasks around the camp. Some of the Apache watched him with open suspicion, others with curiosity. A few children even approached him, fascinated by his strangeness. Nahato, Ayana's 9-year-old brother, appointed himself Nathan's shadow. The boy followed him everywhere, asking questions in Apache that Nathan could not answer. But language was not necessary to form a bond. Nathan showed Nahato how to tie certain knots used in ranching. The boy taught Nathan the proper way to track a rabbit by its prints. On the 4th evening, as Nathan sat outside the healing wickiup watching the sunset paint the mountains orange and red, Grey Wolf joined him. "You have a way with the boy," the warrior observed. Nathan shrugged. "I had a son once. He would have been about Nahato's age now, if he had lived." Grey Wolf absorbed this information silently. After a moment he asked, "What happened?" "Plague. 2 years ago. It took my wife and son both within 3 days of each other." Nathan's voice remained level, but his hands clenched into fists. I knew medicine, I knew healing, and I could do nothing. Just like in the war, just like always. And your ranch? You live there alone now? Yes. It is all I have left of the life I built with Margaret, my wife. If I lose the land, I lose the last piece of her. Grey Wolf considered this. Is that why you stay? Why you fight to keep it? Partly. Nathan turned to look at the warrior directly. But also because it is mine. I followed the law. I worked the land for 5 years as required. I have the papers. And now men like Silas Blackwood want to take it because they are stronger and more ruthless than I am. Tell me about this, Blackwood. Nathan described the confrontation, the threats, the claim of older land grants from Mexican times. Grey Wolf listened without interruption. When Nathan finished, the warrior was quiet for a long time. Then he said something that surprised Nathan. These men threaten you, but they also threaten us. If they take your land, they move closer to our territory. Men like this do not stop until someone stops them. Nathan had not considered this angle. You think they will come after you next? I know they will. Grey Wolf's voice carried absolute certainty. We have seen it before. One ranch becomes two become 5. Then one day soldiers arrive to drive us onto reservations where the land is barren and the water is poison. It happens slowly, then all at once. What can be done about it? Grey Wolf met Nathan's eyes. That depends. Are you willing to fight for your land? Truly fight? Nathan thought of Margaret, of Thomas, of the small graves on the hill behind his cabin. I have already lost everything that mattered. The land is all I have left. Yes, I will fight for it. Then perhaps we can help each other. The suggestion hung in the air between them. An alliance, Apache and white settler. It was almost unthinkable. And yet, in this moment, it made perfect sense. Before Nathan could respond, raised voices erupted from across the camp. Both men turned to see Red Hawk striding toward them, his face twisted with anger. Several other warriors followed. Red Hawk began speaking rapidly in Apache, gesturing at Nathan with clear hostility. Grey Wolf rose to his feet, positioning himself between Red Hawk and Nathan. Their argument grew heated. Ayanna emerged from a nearby wickiup and hurried over as fast as her healing leg would allow. She inserted herself into the confrontation, speaking with authority that belied her youth. Nathan did not need translation to understand the basic conflict. Red Hawk wanted him gone. Ayanna and Grey Wolf were defending his presence. The other warriors were divided. Finally, Ayanna turned to Nathan. Her English came out rushed and imperfect but understandable. Red Hawk says you are spy, that you will tell soldiers where we hide. He wants you to leave now, tonight. Nathan stood slowly, facing Red Hawk directly. Through Ayanna, he said, I understand your distrust. White men have given you every reason to hate us, but I am not your enemy. I have no love for the soldiers or the men trying to steal my land. If anything, we face the same threats. Red Hawk spat a response. Ayanna translated reluctantly. He says white men always lie, that you will betray us when it benefits you, that helping you puts the entire camp at risk. Nathan looked around at the assembled Apache. Some faces showed agreement with Red Hawk. Others were uncertain. A few seemed willing to give him the benefit of doubt. He made a decision. I will prove my word is good, Nathan said clearly. Ayanna, tell him this. I know information that could help your people. The soldiers are planning a sweep through this region in 2 months. I heard about it before I came here. They want to force all Apache onto the San Carlos reservation. If I were a spy, I would have kept that information to myself, used it to help the army find you. As Ayanna translated, the mood shifted. Even Red Hawk's expression changed from anger to calculation. Grey Wolf spoke up. You know this for certain? About the soldiers? Nathan nodded. I overheard it in Tucson. The commanding officer was in the saloon, drinking and talking too freely. He said they were waiting for reinforcements from Fort Apache. Once those arrive, they will start sweeping the Chiricahua Range systematically. How many soldiers? Grey Wolf's voice was urgent now. He mentioned 2 companies, maybe 80 men total. The Apache warriors exchanged glances. 80 soldiers was a significant force. With advance warning, the camp could be moved. Without it, they might be caught unprepared. Gray Wolf turned to Red Hawk and spoke in Apache. The younger warrior responded, his tone still hostile but less certain. Another brief exchange followed. Finally, Gray Wolf addressed Nathan again. "This information has value. If it proves true, it may save lives. That earns you more time. But Red Hawk demands something more." "What does he want?" "Proof that you are not working with the men who threaten your land. Proof that you truly oppose them." "How can I prove that?" "Take us to your ranch. Show us these men who claim your property. Let us see for ourselves what kind of enemy you face." Nathan's mind raced. Bringing Apache warriors to his ranch was dangerous for everyone involved. If they were seen, it could bring the army down on all of them. But refusing would confirm Red Hawk's suspicions. "All right," he said. "When I am strong enough to ride, I will take you there. You can see Blackwood and his men with your own eyes." The decision made, the group dispersed. But the tension did not fully dissipate. Nathan could feel eyes on him as he returned to the healing wickiup. He was being tested. One wrong move and Red Hawk's hostility would find broader support. That night, sleep eluded Nathan. He lay staring at the smoke hole, watching stars wheel slowly overhead. What had he gotten himself into? An alliance with Apache warriors against white ranchers would mark him as a traitor in the eyes of his own people. If word got out, every settler in the territory would view him as an enemy. But what choice did he have? Alone, he could not stand against Blackwood. The man had money, hired guns, and corrupt officials on his side. Nathan had only his legal claim and his determination. That would not be enough. Perhaps the better question was why he cared so much. The land was just land. He could walk away, start over somewhere else, leave all this behind. Except he could not. Because Margaret and Thomas were buried on that hill. Because giving up would mean admitting that everything he had built, everything he had survived, meant nothing. Because sometimes a man had to draw a line and say, "This far and no further." Across the fire, Ayanna stirred in her sleep. She had insisted on remaining in the healing wickiup until both she and Nathan were fully recovered. White-painted woman had allowed it, though Nathan suspected the old woman's reasons had less to do with medical necessity and more to do with understanding what was developing between her granddaughter and the white stranger. Ayanna was a puzzle Nathan could not solve. She had every reason to hate him, yet she defended him. She taught him her language with patience. She looked at him not with suspicion but with something closer to curiosity, as if he were a door that might open onto a different kind of future. The thought both attracted and terrified him. He had sworn after Margaret's death that he would never care about anyone again. Caring led to loss. Loss led to unbearable pain. Better to remain alone, safe in his isolation. Yet here he was, forming connections despite himself. With Ayanna, with Nahato, even with warriors like Gray Wolf who had every reason to despise him. Maybe Margaret had been right. In her final moments she had squeezed his hand and whispered, "Do not let grief kill you, Nathan. Promise me you will keep living." He had promised, but he had not understood what she meant. Not until now. Living was not the same as surviving. Living required opening yourself to possibility, to connection, to the risk of loss. Nathan finally drifted into uneasy sleep as the fire burned down to embers. His dreams were less tormented than usual, perhaps because for the first time in 2 years he felt a purpose beyond simple endurance. When he woke, sunlight streamed through the smoke hole. Ayanna was already awake, sitting up and working on a piece of beadwork. She looked over when she heard him stir. "Good morning," she said in English, then added with a smile, "I practice while you sleep. You speak it very well already. Words are easy." She threaded a bead onto sinew with practiced fingers. Understanding is harder. That is true in any language. She set aside her work and looked at him seriously. "Tonight Gray Wolf wants to talk more. About going to your ranch. About this man Blackwood." Nathan nodded. "I will be ready. Are you afraid?" The question caught him off guard. He considered lying, then decided against it. Yes, taking you to my land puts everyone at risk. If Blackwood sees Apache, he will use it as justification for violence. If soldiers learn I am allied with you, I become an outlaw. Then why do it? Nathan met her eyes. Because sometimes the right path is not the safe path, and because I am tired of being alone. The simple honesty of the statement created a moment of profound connection. Ayanna nodded slowly. I understand this. After my father died, I felt alone even surrounded by my people. Everyone wanted me to be his daughter, to carry his wisdom. No one saw me. And now I see that maybe we all feel alone, even when we are not. Maybe the answer is to stop hiding from each other. She paused. Even if it is dangerous. Especially if it is dangerous, Nathan said quietly. They held each other's gaze. In that moment, something fundamental shifted. They were no longer Apache and white settler, no longer enemy peoples thrown together by accident. They were two people who had saved each other's lives and were choosing to continue doing so. That evening, Grey Wolf returned with 4 other warriors. They brought a map scratched onto a piece of leather. The geography was remarkably accurate, showing the mountain ranges, water sources, and settlements of the region. Show us where your ranch is located, Grey Wolf instructed. Nathan studied the map, then pointed. Here, about 20 miles southeast of this camp, near the old wagon road that leads to Tucson. And Blackwood? He has been staying in a cabin about 5 miles east of my land, waiting for me to abandon my claim. Nathan's jaw tightened, or waiting for an opportunity to take it by force. How many men does he have? 3 that I have seen, himself and 2 hired guns. There may be more. The warriors exchanged glances. 3 armed white men were dangerous, but manageable. Grey Wolf traced a route on the map with his finger. We will leave tomorrow at dawn. 5 warriors plus you. We scout your ranch, observe these men, and return before dark. No contact unless absolutely necessary. Nathan agreed. He spent the rest of the evening preparing. His clothes were torn from the rescue and subsequent healing. White-painted woman provided him with an Apache shirt and leggings to replace them. They fit reasonably well, though they marked him as someone between worlds, neither fully white nor fully Apache. As he prepared to sleep that final night in the camp, Ayanna approached with something in her hands, a necklace made of small shells and turquoise beads. She held it out to him. This was my father's, she said quietly. He wore it always, said it would protect him. She placed it around Nathan's neck. Maybe it will protect you too. Nathan touched the smooth beads, moved by the gesture. I will return it when I come back. Ayanna shook her head. Keep it, as reminder, that some things are stronger than hate. He wanted to say something meaningful in response, something worthy of the gift she had just given him. But words failed. Instead, he simply nodded, his throat too tight for speech. Tomorrow would bring danger, possibly death. But tonight, in this moment, Nathan felt something he had not experienced since Margaret's death. Hope. Dawn broke cold and clear over the Apache camp. Nathan woke to find Grey Wolf already waiting outside the healing wickiup, along with 4 other warriors. They stood silent as stones, weapons ready, faces painted with ochre and ash for protection. Nathan emerged into the morning chill. He wore the Apache clothing Ayanna's grandmother had given him, and the shell necklace hung against his chest. He felt the weight of it like a promise he intended to keep. Ayanna appeared from her grandmother's wickiup. She moved better now, though still with a slight limp. She crossed to Nathan carrying something wrapped in leather. Food for the journey, she said in careful English. Dried meat and corn cakes, enough for 2 days. We will be back by nightfall, Nathan replied. Plans change. Her eyes held his. Come back safe. There was more she wanted to say. Nathan could see it in her expression. But not here, not now, with the warriors watching. He nodded once, accepting both the food and the unspoken concern behind it. The group set out as the sun cleared the mountain peaks. They rode in silence, communicating only through hand signals. Grey Wolf led, with Nathan beside him. The other 4 warriors flanked them in a loose formation that could respond instantly to threat from any direction. Red Hawk was among them. The young warrior had insisted on coming, though his motivation was clearly surveillance rather than support. He watched Nathan constantly, looking for any sign of betrayal. They traveled through terrain Nathan knew well but saw with new eyes. The warriors moved across the desert like water, leaving almost no trace. They read the land in ways Nathan was only beginning to understand. A disturbed stone here, a broken twig there, evidence of passage invisible to untrained eyes. Around midday, Grey Wolf called a halt. They had reached a ridge overlooking a wide valley. In the distance, Nathan could see a thin line of green marking the creek that ran through his property. "There," he said, pointing. "My ranch is in that grove of cottonwoods. You can just see the roof of the cabin." Grey Wolf studied the landscape with a warrior's eye, measuring distances, noting escape routes, evaluating defensive positions. "And Blackwood?" Nathan scanned the valley. "There, east of my land, near that outcropping of red rock. You can see smoke from a fire." The warriors dismounted. They would approach on foot from here, moving slowly and carefully. Horses were too visible, too noisy. This required stealth. They left one warrior with the horses and continued in a group of 5. Nathan led them along a route that offered maximum cover. Dried creek beds, stands of mesquite, boulder fields that provided concealment. The journey that would take an hour on horseback stretched to 3 hours of careful stalking. As they drew closer to Nathan's ranch, he felt a strange mixture of emotions. This land represented everything he had built with Margaret. Every fence post, every irrigation ditch, every stone in the cabin's foundation carried memories of their shared labor, and now it was threatened by men who saw only profit, men who would destroy what he and Margaret had created without a second thought. The group halted in a dense thicket of mesquite about 200 yards from the cabin. From here they had a clear view of Nathan's property. What they saw made Nathan's hands clench into fists. Blackwood's men had made themselves at home. They had moved into the cabin as if they owned it. Nathan could see his furniture piled outside, replaced with their own rough camp equipment. His carefully tended garden had been trampled. Fence rails lay broken and scattered. 3 horses were tied to the corral fence. That meant all 3 men were present. Grey Wolf touched Nathan's arm, pointed. "There, by the well." Silas Blackwood himself stood drawing water, his distinctive black beard unmistakable even at this distance. He was speaking to one of his hired guns, gesturing toward the mountains, toward Apache territory. "We need to get closer," Nathan whispered, "to hear what they are saying." "Too dangerous," Grey Wolf replied. "If they see us, everything fails." But Red Hawk had already begun moving forward, using the irrigation ditches Nathan had dug as cover. The young warrior moved with absolute confidence, closing the distance until he was within earshot of the white men. The others waited, tense and ready to fight or flee depending on what happened next. Minutes crawled by. Then Red Hawk returned, moving just as silently as he had departed. He spoke rapidly to Grey Wolf in Apache. The older warrior's expression darkened as he listened. When Red Hawk finished, Grey Wolf turned to Nathan. "They speak of bringing more men, 10 or 15. They plan to claim not just your land but all the territory from here to the mountains. They say the Apache will be driven out within the year, that the government will pay bounties for Apache scalps again, like in the old days." Nathan felt sick. Scalp bounties. He remembered hearing about that practice from before the war. $1 for every Apache killed, proven by their hair. Men, women, children. It had not mattered. Money was money. "This is worse than I thought," Nathan said. "Blackwood is not just stealing land. He is planning a campaign of extermination." Grey Wolf's face was carved from stone. "This is nothing new. It is the same story, repeating forever. White men want land. Apache are in the way. Apache must die." "But now we know their plan," Nathan said urgently. "We can prepare. Warn your people. Maybe even stop them before they bring in those additional men." "How?" Red Hawk's English was broken but understandable. "You think soldiers will listen to white man who lives with Apache? You think other settlers will help you?" His laugh was bitter. "You are fool." Nathan opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. Red Hawk was right. Going to the authorities would accomplish nothing. More likely it would bring trouble down on everyone involved. "There has to be another way," he said. Gray Wolf studied the ranch in silence. Finally he spoke. "We make them leave. Show strength. Make them understand this land is not worth the cost." "You mean threaten them?" "I mean convince them." Gray Wolf's smile held no humor. "Through whatever means necessary." Nathan considered the option. Violence would solve nothing in the long term. It would only bring more violence. But perhaps a show of force, a demonstration that he was not as defenseless as Blackwood assumed, might make the man reconsider. "If we do this," Nathan said slowly, "no one dies. We scare them off, but we do not kill unless there is absolutely no other choice. Killing them will bring the army down on all of us." Gray Wolf nodded. "Agreed. We want them gone, not martyred." The plan came together quickly. They would wait until evening when the light was fading. The Apache would position themselves around the ranch, staying hidden but making their presence known. Nathan would confront Blackwood directly, backed by the implicit threat of warriors in the shadows. It was risky. Everything depended on Blackwood being more interested in easy money than a costly fight. If the man decided to stand and fight anyway, people would die. They spent the afternoon observing, learning the patterns of the three men. Blackwood clearly considered himself in charge. He gave orders while his hired guns did the actual work. The two younger men seemed competent, but not particularly loyal. Mercenaries who would flee at the first sign of serious danger. That was useful information. As the sun began its descent toward the western peaks, the warriors moved into position. Red Hawk circled to the north. Two others took positions south and west. Gray Wolf remained with Nathan, hidden in the mesquite thicket. When the shadows stretched long and the light turned golden, Nathan stood up and walked toward his cabin. His heart hammered against his ribs. His mouth was dry. Every instinct screamed at him to turn back, to hide, to run. But he kept walking, one foot in front of the other. Across the land he had worked with his own hands, toward the men who wanted to take it from him. Blackwood saw him first. The big man straightened, hand dropping to the pistol at his hip. His shout brought the other two running from inside the cabin. "Thornhill!" Blackwood's voice carried surprise and anger in equal measure. "We thought you had run off, or died." Nathan stopped about 30 feet away, far enough to have a chance to move if shooting started, close enough to be heard clearly. "This is my land," Nathan said. His voice was steady despite the fear coursing through him. "I want you off it. Now." Blackwood laughed. It was an ugly sound. "Your land? Boy, you have been gone near 2 weeks. As far as the law is concerned, you abandoned your claim. We have filed papers in Tucson. This property belongs to the Blackwood Mining Company now. Those papers are fraudulent. You know it, and I know it. Prove it." Blackwood's hand rested on his pistol grip. "You are one man, Thornhill. We are 3. You really want to push this?" Nathan allowed himself a small smile. "I am not alone." He raised his hand and made the signal Gray Wolf had taught him. 4 whistles, each slightly different in pitch, carried across the evening air. The response was immediate and dramatic. 4 Apache warriors stood up from concealment, appearing as if they had materialized from the earth itself. Each one held a rifle pointed at the 3 white men. The effect was electric. Blackwood's hired guns went pale. Their hands, which had been moving toward weapons, froze in place. Even Blackwood himself took an involuntary step backward. "What in hell?" The big man's voice had lost its confidence. "You brought savages here? You are a dead man, Thornhill. When word gets out that you are working with Apache, every settler and soldier in Arizona will hunt you down." Nathan kept his voice calm. I am not working with anyone. I simply asked my neighbors for help dealing with men trying to steal my land. Turns out they do not like land thieves any more than I do. Grey Wolf emerged from concealment, his rifle trained on Blackwood's chest. He spoke in English, his accent thick but the words clear. You leave, tonight, never come back, or we kill you and bury you where no one will find the bones. The brutal simplicity of the threat left no room for negotiation. This was not a discussion. It was a statement of fact. One of the hired guns, a thin man with nervous eyes, spoke up. Silas, this was not part of our arrangement. You said it would be easy money. You did not say nothing about fighting Apache. Shut up, Jake, Blackwood snarled, but his own confidence was cracking. 4 rifles against 3 pistols. Warriors who knew this terrain against hired thugs who did not. The math was clear. I have friends, Blackwood said, trying to salvage something. Important friends. If anything happens to me, they will come looking. They will burn this whole valley to ashes. Then maybe you should stay alive, Nathan replied. Which means you should leave. Right now. Take your men. Take your fraudulent papers. And never come back to my land. The standoff stretched for long seconds. The sun touched the mountain peaks, painting everything in shades of blood, orange, and shadow. Somewhere a bird called, oblivious to the human drama playing out below. Finally, the second hired gun broke. He was younger than Jake, barely 20. His voice shook when he spoke. I am not dying for this, not for no amount of money. He dropped his pistol in the dirt and raised his hands. Billy, you coward! Blackwood's face flushed dark red, but Jake was already following suit. His weapon hit the ground with a thud. Sorry, Silas. The boy is right. This is not worth it. Blackwood stood alone, outnumbered and abandoned. For a moment Nathan thought the man might try to fight anyway. Pride and rage warred in his expression. His hand tightened on his pistol grip. Do not, Nathan said quietly. Please, just walk away. Live to fight another day if you must, but do not die here for land that was never yours. The words seemed to reach something in Blackwood, or perhaps it was simply the rifles pointed at him. Either way, his hand moved slowly away from his weapon. He raised both hands in surrender. You have not won, he said. His voice was low and venomous. This is not over, Thornhill. Maybe I leave today, but one day when you least expect it, I will come back, and I will take everything from you. Everything. Nathan met his gaze without flinching. Maybe, but not today. Now get your men and get out. Grey Wolf made a gesture. 2 of the warriors moved forward, collecting the discarded pistols. They checked Blackwood for additional weapons, found a knife and a small derringer, and confiscated those as well. Walk, Grey Wolf commanded. East. We will watch until you are gone. The 3 men began moving. Blackwood in front, stiff with humiliation. Jake and Billy following, clearly relieved to be leaving with their lives. They did not look back. The warriors tracked them for a mile, making sure they continued moving away. Only when the 3 figures had disappeared into the gathering darkness did the Apache return to Nathan's ranch. Nathan stood in front of his cabin, looking at the damage Blackwood had done. It was not severe, but it would take time to repair, furniture to clean, fences to mend. The garden was a total loss for this season, but it was his, still his. Grey Wolf approached, rifle still in hand. You did well, spoke clearly, showed no fear even when you were afraid. I was terrified, Nathan admitted. Still am. Blackwood meant what he said. He will come back. Perhaps. But now he knows you are not alone. That changes everything. Nathan turned to face the warrior. Thank you. For this. For risking your lives to help someone you have no reason to trust. We have reason now. Grey Wolf's expression was serious. You were right about the threat. Men like Blackwood will not stop with your land. They will come for ours next. Better to stop them now, while they are still weak. Red Hawk joined them, his face still suspicious, but less hostile than before. He spoke in Apache to Grey Wolf. The older warrior responded, then translated for Nathan. Red Hawk says you proved yourself today, that you stood when you could have run. He still does not trust you fully, but he respects you now. That is a start. Nathan nodded to Red Hawk. The younger warrior hesitated, then returned the gesture. It was a small thing, but it mattered. The group decided to camp at Nathan's ranch for the night rather than attempt the journey back in darkness. They built a fire in the yard and shared the food Ayanna had packed. The warriors gradually relaxed, speaking more freely now that the immediate danger had passed. Nathan found himself listening to their stories. Grey Wolf spoke of battles from 20 years ago. Another warrior named Broken Arrow described hunting elk in the high country before the white men came. Even Red Hawk contributed, telling a story about stealing horses from Mexican soldiers that had the others laughing. It was strange, sitting here with Apache warriors on land he had claimed as his own. 2 years ago, Nathan would have considered these men enemies, would have feared them. Now he saw them as what they truly were, people trying to survive in a world that wanted them gone, not so different from himself. As the fire burned down to coals, Grey Wolf spoke again. What will you do now? Blackwood will tell others that you allied with Apache. That will make you an outcast among your own people. Nathan had been thinking about this very question. I do not know. Maybe it does not matter. Most settlers already avoid me. After Margaret and Thomas died, I became the man who lives alone, the strange one. Adding Apache allies to that reputation changes nothing. It changes much, Grey Wolf corrected. Before, you were harmless, pitiable. Now you are dangerous. A white man who breaks ranks. That frightens people more than Apache warriors do. Then I will have to live with their fear. Or, Grey Wolf said slowly, you could do something else. Something more. What do you mean? The older warrior poked at the fire with a stick, considering his words. Your people and my people, we are not so different. We both want land to live on. Water, food, safety for our families. The government tells us we cannot share these things, that one people must have everything while the other has nothing. But what if that is a lie? Nathan understood where this was heading. You want to form a real alliance, not just for one fight, but for the long term. I want to survive, Grey Wolf said bluntly, and my people cannot survive alone anymore. There are too many of you and too few of us. Every year we are pushed into smaller areas, given less food, treated worse. If we fight, we die. If we do not fight, we die anyway. Just slower. He met Nathan's eyes across the fire. But if some white men stood with us, if they said no, these Apache are under our protection, they work our land, they are our partners, then maybe the soldiers would think twice. Maybe other settlers would see a different possibility. It was a bold idea, radical, possibly insane. And yet, sitting here in the firelight with men who had risked their lives for him, Nathan could not dismiss it out of hand. The government would never allow it, he said. The government is far away. Grey Wolf smiled slightly. And they cannot watch everywhere at once. Here on this land, you decide what is allowed. If you choose to hire Apache workers, if you choose to share your water and your harvest, who is to stop you? Nathan thought of Ayanna, of Nahato, of white-painted woman's weathered face and quiet dignity, of these warriors who had stood beside him against Blackwood. I would need time to think about this, he said finally. It would change everything, put everyone at risk. Everything is already changing, Grey Wolf replied. We can change with it, or be swept away. Those are the only choices. They left it there for the night. But as Nathan lay under the stars, wrapped in a blanket borrowed from Grey Wolf, his mind would not rest. The warrior had articulated something Nathan had only dimly perceived. The old ways were dying. The frontier was closing. Soon there would be no wild places left, no empty lands. In that future, Apache and white settlers would either find a way to coexist or destroy each other completely. There was no middle ground. Nathan touched the shell necklace at his throat. Ayana's father had believed coexistence was possible, had signed treaties based on that belief. Those treaties had been broken. Cochise had died disappointed and betrayed. But maybe his dream had not been wrong. Maybe it had simply been ahead of its time. Maybe now, with the frontier closing and the old certainties crumbling, people might finally be desperate enough to try something different. Or maybe Nathan was a fool, a broken man grasping at purpose in a world that no longer made sense. Time would tell. In the darkness, Red Hawk kept watch. Nathan heard him moving quietly around the perimeter, checking for threats. Earlier, the young warrior had looked at Nathan with pure hatred. Now there was something else in his eyes. Not friendship, not yet, but a grudging acknowledgement that Nathan might be more than he appeared. It was progress, small, uncertain progress, but progress nonetheless. Tomorrow they would return to the Apache camp. Nathan would report what they had found and what they had done. Decisions would be made about what came next, whether to pursue Grey Wolf's vision of alliance or retreat back into the old patterns of separation and conflict. But tonight, exhausted and strangely hopeful, Nathan allowed himself to imagine a different future. One where his ranch was not a lonely outpost, but a bridge between worlds. Where Margaret's grave on the hill overlooked not wasteland, but something new, something worth building. The stars wheeled overhead, cold and distant and eternal. And beneath them, on a piece of contested ground in the Arizona Territory, 6 men slept. 5 Apache and 1 white settler. Unlikely allies in an uncertain time. The fire burned down to ash. The night grew cold, and the future, whatever it held, drew one day closer. The journey back to the Apache camp took most of the following day. They traveled slowly, cautiously, alert for any sign that Blackwood or his men had doubled back, but the desert remained empty except for hawks circling overhead and lizards darting between rocks. Nathan rode beside Grey Wolf in companionable silence. The events of the previous day had forged something between them, not quite friendship, but a mutual respect born of shared danger. They had faced a threat together and prevailed. That counted for something in any culture. As they climbed into the mountains where the Apache camp lay hidden, Nathan felt an unexpected sense of homecoming. Strange, considering he had only spent a handful of days there. Yet the place had marked him, or perhaps the people had. They arrived in late afternoon to find the camp in a state of heightened activity. Women were packing belongings. Children were being gathered and quieted. Warriors checked weapons with grim expressions. Grey Wolf dismounted quickly, striding toward a group of elders gathered near the central fire. Nathan followed, sensing that something significant had happened in their absence. White-painted woman stood among the elders, her lined face grave. She spoke rapidly in Apache, gesturing toward the mountains. Grey Wolf's expression darkened as he listened. When she finished, he turned to Nathan. Soldiers were seen 2 valleys over, a patrol of 20 men moving in this direction. They questioned a trader, asking about Apache camps in the area. "How much time do we have?" Nathan asked. "A day, maybe 2 if they stop to resupply." Grey Wolf's jaw tightened. "We must move the camp, find a new location deeper in the mountains." "What about your supplies? Your stored food?" "We take what we can carry. Leave the rest. It is not the first time we have had to abandon a camp. It will not be the last." Nathan watched the organized chaos of preparation. Wiki-ups were being dismantled. Food was being sorted into portable bundles. The entire community would be uprooted because soldiers had come too close. This was their reality. Constant displacement. Perpetual vigilance. Ayana emerged from her grandmother's wiki-up carrying an armload of dried herbs and medicine supplies. She saw Nathan and immediately changed direction, hurrying toward him with her distinctive limp. "You are back," she said. Relief flooded her face. "I was worried." "We had some trouble," Nathan admitted, "but everyone is safe." She looked past him at the other warriors, counting to make sure all had returned. Then her attention came back to Nathan. And your land? Still mine. For now. He touched the shell necklace. This brought me luck. Ayana's smile was brief, already fading as she glanced around the camp. We have to leave. Soldiers are coming. I heard. Where will you go? North and east, higher into the mountains where the trails are harder to follow. She shifted the bundle in her arms. It will be a difficult journey. Some of the elders are too old to travel fast. We will have to be careful. How can I help? The question seemed to surprise her. You have already helped, more than we could have asked. Now you should return to your ranch before someone sees you here. Nathan shook his head. If soldiers are in the area, they might stop at my place. Ask questions. I would rather not be there to answer them right now. Then you will come with us? To the new camp? It was a bigger question than it appeared on the surface. Going with the Apache meant fully committing to this alliance. It meant crossing a line that could never be uncrossed. Once the soldiers learned a white man was traveling with Apache, Nathan would become a wanted man, an outlaw. He thought of his empty cabin, his lonely vigil at Margaret's grave. 2 years of existing rather than living, 2 years of going through motions without purpose. Yes, he said, I will come with you. Ayana's eyes searched his face. This is dangerous for you. You know this? Everything worth doing is dangerous. She nodded slowly, accepting his decision. Then help me pack the medicine supplies. We will need everything we can carry. They worked side by side for the next several hours as the camp transformed around them. Nathan marveled at the efficiency of it. Nothing was wasted. Every item had a purpose and a place. Within 3 hours, the entire camp had been reduced to bundles that could be carried on backs or loaded onto horses. Nahato found Nathan as the sun began to set. The boy had a leather bag slung over his shoulder and determination written across his young face. You are coming with us? The boy asked in broken English. Yes, if your people will have me. Nahato grinned. Good. I can teach you more tracking. You are still very bad at it. Nathan could not help but smile. I am sure you are right. I have much to learn. The boy's expression turned serious. Thank you. For helping my sister. For helping all of us. Before Nathan could respond, Nahato darted away, called by his grandmother. But the brief exchange left Nathan feeling strangely moved. In the boy's eyes, he had seen simple acceptance. Not the suspicion of Red Hawk or the calculation of Grey Wolf, but straightforward trust. It was humbling. The camp departed at nightfall, traveling by moonlight to reduce the risk of being spotted. They moved in small groups spread out over a mile, making the trail harder to follow. Nathan traveled with Ayana, her grandmother, and 3 other families toward the middle of the column. The pace was punishing. They walked for hours with only brief rest stops. The terrain grew steeper, rockier. More than once, Nathan had to help white-painted woman over difficult sections. The old woman was tough, but her joints protested the constant climbing. They traveled through the night and into the next day, stopping only when exhaustion made further progress impossible. The new camp was established in a narrow canyon with steep walls and only one easily defendable entrance. A spring provided water. Game trails suggested hunting would be adequate. It was not as comfortable as the previous location, but it was safer. That was what mattered. Nathan collapsed onto a blanket someone had spread for him, too tired to even feel hungry. Ayana sat down beside him, equally exhausted. How do you do this? Nathan asked. Move entire camps with children and elders? It seems impossible. We do what we must, she replied. Her English had improved remarkably even in the short time he had known her. When the choice is move or die, you find strength you did not know you had. Your people are remarkable. Ayana looked at him with an expression he could not quite read. So are you. Not many white men would walk away from their land to help Apache. I did not walk away. I just took a different path to defend it. She smiled at that. Perhaps, or perhaps you are finally seeing that some things matter more than land. Before Nathan could respond, Grey Wolf approached. The warrior looked tired but satisfied. We are secure here. Scouts report no soldiers within 10 miles. We should be safe for now. How long can you stay in this location? Nathan asked. Weeks, maybe months if we are careful. Grey Wolf sat down heavily. But eventually we will have to move again. It is always the same. Run, hide, survive another day. There has to be a better way, Nathan said. If you know one, I am listening. Grey Wolf's voice carried frustration born of years of futility. My father fought soldiers. I fought soldiers. Now my son will fight soldiers. When does it end? Nathan thought about the question. About Blackwood and men like him who saw Apache as obstacles to profit? About army officers who saw them as savages to be eliminated? About government officials who broke treaties as casually as children broke sticks? It ends when enough people decide it should end, Nathan said finally, when enough settlers refuse to participate in the killing, when enough soldiers question their orders, when enough officials remember that treaties are supposed to mean something. Pretty words, Grey Wolf said, but words do not stop bullets. No, but they can stop bullets from being fired in the first place. Nathan leaned forward. That traitor the soldiers questioned. What did he tell them? He said he knew nothing, that he had not seen any Apache in months. Why? Why would he lie to soldiers? Grey Wolf shrugged. Marcus is a good man. He trades fairly with us, has done so for years. He does not want to see us driven onto reservations any more than we do, so there are white men who will help. Nathan felt a spark of hope. Not many, perhaps, but some, a few. Very few. Then we find more. We build connections. We create a network of people who benefit from Apache remaining free. Traders who need your furs and crafts. Ranchers who need workers. Even some soldiers who are tired of fighting wars they know are wrong. Grey Wolf studied him thoughtfully. You are talking about changing how people think. That is harder than any battle, but more permanent if it works. Ayanna had been listening silently. Now she spoke up. My father believed this. He tried to build bridges between Apache and white settlers. But the bridges were burned before they could be crossed. Maybe it is time to rebuild them, Nathan said. He looked between Grey Wolf and Ayanna. You said I proved myself at the ranch, that I showed I could be trusted. Let me prove it further. Let me be one of those bridges. What do you propose? Grey Wolf asked. I return to my ranch. Openly employ Apache workers during harvest season. Pay fair wages. Treat them with respect. Show other ranchers that cooperation benefits everyone. They will call you Indian lover. Drive you out. Maybe. Or maybe some will see the practical advantages. Apache workers know this land better than any white settlers. They can teach us what grows well here, what animals to hunt, how to survive dry seasons. That knowledge has value. And when soldiers come asking questions, Ayanna's voice held concern. I tell them the truth, that I hired workers and they happen to be Apache, that I am breaking no laws, that the land is mine and I will employ whoever I choose. Grey Wolf shook his head slowly. You make it sound simple. It will not be simple. I know. Nathan met his gaze steadily. But doing nothing guarantees failure. At least this offers a chance. The warrior was quiet for a long time, weighing the proposal. Finally he spoke. I will bring this to the council. Let the elders decide. But I think they will agree to try. We have nothing to lose. We are already losing everything. He stood and walked away, leaving Nathan and Ayanna alone. She looked at him with an expression of mingled admiration and worry. You risk much for people you barely know. I know you, Nathan said quietly. I know Nahato. I know your grandmother and Grey Wolf. That is enough. Is it? Or are you trying to save us because you could not save your wife and son? The question hit harder than Nathan expected. He had to think about his answer. Maybe both are true. Maybe I cannot separate my need to help from my guilt about the past. But does the motivation matter if the result is good? It matters to me, Ayanna said, because I do not want to be your penance. If we are to work together, to build these bridges you speak of, It must be because you see value in us, not because you see ghosts you are trying to lay to rest." Nathan absorbed that, recognizing the wisdom in it. "You are right. I apologize. You and your people deserve better than to be vehicles for my redemption." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "But the truth is, over these past days, I have seen value in your people. Real value, separate from my guilt. I have seen courage and wisdom and humor. I have seen families caring for each other, communities working together. Things I thought I had lost forever when Margaret died." He met her eyes. "You have reminded me what it means to be part of something larger than myself. And yes, that eases my guilt. But it also makes me want to fight for you because you are worth fighting for. Not because of what you represent to my damaged soul, but because of who you actually are." Ayanna held his gaze for several heartbeats. Then she reached out and took his hand. The gesture was simple but profound. "Thank you," she said, "for seeing us." Many white men look at Apache and see only what they want to see. Animals, savages, obstacles. You are one of the few who looks deeper. Nathan squeezed her hand gently. "I had a good teacher." They sat together in comfortable silence as the camp settled into evening routines around them. Fires were lit. Food was prepared. Children played despite the upheaval of the forced relocation. Life continued because it had to. Over the next 2 days, Nathan threw himself into helping establish the new camp. He worked alongside warriors to build shelters, helped women process deer that hunters brought back, played with children who had overcome their initial shyness around the strange white man. Nahato became his constant companion, teaching Nathan words in Apache and learning English in return. The boy had a gift for languages and a natural curiosity about everything. He reminded Nathan painfully of Thomas, yet the similarity no longer brought only sadness. Now it brought a bittersweet warmth. One afternoon, while hauling water from the spring, Nathan encountered Red Hawk. The young warrior had been avoiding him since their return. Now they stood face to face on the narrow trail with no way to pass without acknowledging each other. Red Hawk spoke in Apache, his tone curt but not openly hostile. Ayanna, who was walking behind Nathan, translated. "He says you work hard for a white man, that you do not complain about tasks others might consider beneath them. Tell him I am grateful to be here, that his people have shown me more kindness than I deserve." Ayanna translated. Red Hawk responded, this time speaking directly to Nathan in broken English. "You help at ranch. Fight beside us. This is good. But if you betray us, I will kill you myself. Understand?" "I understand," Nathan replied, "and I give you my word. I will not betray you. Words are cheap. Then judge me by my actions. That is all I ask." Red Hawk studied him for another moment, then nodded once and continued down the trail. It was not friendship, but it was acceptance of a sort. Progress. That evening the council gathered to discuss Nathan's proposal. He was invited to attend, which Ayanna explained was a rare honor for an outsider. He sat at the edge of the circle listening as Grey Wolf presented the idea in Apache. The debate was lengthy. White-painted woman spoke at length, though Nathan could not understand her words. Several warriors contributed opinions. Even some of the younger people were given a chance to speak. Finally, Grey Wolf turned to Nathan. "The council has questions for you. I am ready to answer. If Apache come to work your land, who decides which people go? You or us?" "You do. I trust your judgment about who can be spared from the camp and who has the needed skills. What if soldiers come to your ranch and see Apache there? I tell them the truth, that I hired workers. If they object, I point out that I am breaking no laws. And if they arrest you?" Nathan had considered this possibility. "Then I go to jail. But my land remains mine, and when I am released, we try again." The council members exchanged glances. Another question came, this one from white-painted woman. Ayanna translated her grandmother's words. She asks what you truly want from this arrangement. What is your goal? Nathan thought carefully before responding. I want what everyone wants. To live in peace on land I have worked to build. To have neighbors I can trust. To leave something meaningful behind when I die. Your people want the same things. Maybe if we help each other achieve those goals, we all benefit. White-painted woman nodded slowly, seeming satisfied with this answer. The debate continued for another hour. Finally, Grey Wolf raised his hand for silence. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of decision. The council agrees to try your plan. 4 warriors will come to your ranch for the harvest. They will work, and you will pay them in food, tools, and silver. If this succeeds, we will send more workers next season. If it fails, we will find another way. Nathan felt relief wash through him. Thank you. I will not let you down. See that you do not, Grey Wolf said. Many lives depend on this working, not just yours, not just ours, but all who might follow this path in the future. The gathering broke up shortly after. Nathan found himself surrounded by people offering words he could not understand, but whose meaning was clear from tone and gesture. Encouragement, hope, and from a few, including Red Hawk, warnings about the consequences of failure. Ayanna found him as he walked back toward his sleeping area. Her eyes shone in the firelight. You did well tonight, spoke with wisdom and humility. My father would have liked you. That means more than you know, Nathan said. She walked beside him in silence for a moment. Then, almost shyly, she asked, Will you teach me more English before you return to your ranch? I want to understand everything when I come to help with the harvest. You are coming? Of course. Someone must translate, and someone must make sure you treat Apache workers fairly. She smiled. Who better than the daughter of Cochise? Nathan found himself smiling back. Who better indeed? They spent the next several days in intensive language lessons. Ayanna's English improved rapidly. Nathan's Apache progressed more slowly, but he learned enough to communicate basic needs and courtesies. More importantly, they learned each other's stories in greater depth. Ayanna spoke of her childhood, watching her father negotiate with soldiers and settlers, always seeking peace, even when peace seemed impossible. Nathan shared memories of Margaret, of building the ranch stone by stone, of Thomas's laughter echoing through rooms now silent. The sharing created a bond deeper than mere friendship. They were two people who had suffered loss, who carried grief as a constant weight, who were now choosing to build something new from the ruins of what had been. On the morning Nathan prepared to return to his ranch, the entire camp gathered to see him off. Grey Wolf presented him with a rifle, beautifully crafted and well-maintained. For defense, the warrior said, and for hunting. You are one of us now. Take this as proof. Nathan accepted the gift with gratitude that went beyond words. He mounted his horse, which had been well cared for during his stay, and prepared to depart. Nahato ran up, pressing something into Nathan's hand, a small carved figure of a hawk. For protection, the boy said in careful English, come back soon. I will, Nathan promised. Ayanna stood slightly apart from the others. When Nathan rode past her, she spoke quietly. Be safe. We need you. And I need you, he replied. All of you. Then he rode out of the canyon, back toward his ranch, and whatever future awaited. Behind him, the Apache camp continued its morning routines. But something had shifted. A bridge had been built between worlds that had seemed forever separated. Whether that bridge would hold against the storms to come remained to be seen. But for now, in this moment, it stood. Fragile as hope. Strong as the human need to believe in possibility. The desert stretched before Nathan, vast and empty and beautiful. Somewhere ahead lay his ranch, his land, his future, and now, for the first time in 2 years, he rode toward it not alone but as part of something larger. The thought brought a smile to his weathered face as he urged his horse forward into the morning light. 6 months had passed since Nathan Thornhill rode back to his ranch with an Apache rifle across his saddle and hope in his heart. 6 months that had transformed everything. Spring had arrived in the Arizona Territory, painting the desert in shades of green that would disappear by summer's heat. But for now, the land felt alive in a way Nathan had not experienced since Margaret's death. The ranch thrived with the kind of productivity that came from many hands working in harmony. 4 Apache workers had come for the harvest, as Gray Wolf had promised. They had stayed through winter, teaching Nathan techniques for crop rotation and water conservation that his people had never imagined. In return, Nathan had paid them fairly and treated them with respect that few white employers offered. Word had spread slowly through the territory. Some settlers muttered darkly about Indian lovers and traitors. Others, seeing the success of Nathan's methods, began to reconsider their prejudices. A few even approached Gray Wolf through intermediaries, asking about hiring Apache workers themselves. It was progress, small, uncertain, constantly threatened, but progress nonetheless. Nathan stood on the hill behind his cabin, looking down at the 2 oak trees that marked Margaret and Thomas's graves. He came here every Sunday, a ritual he had maintained through all the changes. "I wish you could see this," he said to the silent earth. "What we are building here. You would be proud, Margaret. Or maybe you would think I have lost my mind." He smiled slightly. Knowing her, probably both. Footsteps approached from behind. Nathan did not need to turn to know who it was. He had learned to recognize Ayanna's distinctive gait, the slight favor she still gave her left leg where the snake had bitten. She came to stand beside him, looking at the graves with respectful silence. After a moment she spoke. "You talk to them often, every week. I tell them about everything that is happening, about the workers and the crops, about Gray Wolf's visits and Nahato's progress in English." Nathan paused. "About you." Ayanna glanced at him, something unreadable in her expression. "What do you say about me? That you have become essential to making all this work. That your translation and mediation have prevented a dozen potential conflicts." He met her eyes. "That I do not know what I would do without you." The simple honesty of the statement hung between them. Over the past months, Ayanna had spent more and more time at the ranch. She had established a small healing practice there, treating injuries and illnesses for both Apache workers and the occasional white settler brave enough to seek her help. Her presence had become as natural as sunrise. Nathan could no longer imagine the place without her quiet competence, her gentle humor, her steady presence through challenges that would have broken him alone. "I should return to my people," Ayanna said quietly. "Grandmother grows older. She needs help that I cannot provide from here." Nathan felt something cold settle in his chest. "When will you go?" "Soon, after next week's trading trip to Tucson." She looked back toward the cabin. "But I will return. This place has become important to me as well." Relief flooded through him, followed immediately by guilt. He had no right to feel such attachment. Ayanna was not Margaret, could never replace Margaret. And yet, the thought of her leaving created an emptiness he was not prepared to face. "I am glad," he said simply. "The workers trust you in ways they will never fully trust me. You are the bridge that makes this possible." It was a safe thing to say. True, but impersonal. A way to express his need for her presence without crossing lines that should not be crossed. Ayanna seemed to understand the subtext beneath his words. She placed her hand briefly on his arm, a gesture of comfort and connection. Then she turned and walked back toward the cabin, leaving Nathan alone with his ghosts and his complicated feelings. The trip to Tucson came 3 days later. Nathan went with Gray Wolf, Ayanna, and 2 young warriors who were curious about the white town. It was a risky journey, but necessary. They needed supplies that could only be purchased there: salt, iron tools, ammunition, things the Apache could not make themselves. Tucson had grown since Nathan last visited. More buildings, more people. The presence of the army had increased as well. Soldiers were everywhere, their blue uniforms a constant reminder of the government's determination to control this territory. They split up to avoid drawing attention. Nathan went to the general store while Grey Wolf and the warriors visited the trader Marcus at the edge of town. Ayanna accompanied Nathan, her Apache features hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat, and her manner suggesting she was a Mexican servant rather than a Chiricahua healer. The deception left a bitter taste in Nathan's mouth, but it was necessary for safety. Inside the store, Nathan purchased flour, sugar, coffee, and other staples. The proprietor, a man named Henderson, watched Ayanna with poorly concealed suspicion. After loading the supplies, Nathan made one more stop. The land office sat at the end of Main Street, its wooden sign weathered but still legible. He needed to ensure his homestead papers were properly recorded after months of Apache workers on his land. Inside, a balding man with thick spectacles looked up from his ledger. His expression shifted from routine boredom to recognition, then discomfort. "Mr. Thornhill," the clerk said carefully, "I was not expecting to see you." Nathan approached the counter, keeping his voice level. "I want to verify my land registration. Make sure everything is in order." The man, whose nameplate read Horace Finch, set down his pen with visible reluctance. "About that. I need to speak with you honestly." Nathan's hand tightened on the counter. "What about it?" Finch glanced toward the door, then lowered his voice. "Silas Blackwood came to me months ago. Offered me $100 to file paperwork saying you had abandoned your claim. He showed me those old Mexican land grants, said they were legitimate." "And you did it?" Nathan's voice was quiet, dangerous. "I did," Finch admitted, shame coloring his features. "I am not a rich man, Mr. Thornhill. $100 is more than I make in 3 months. I thought you had left for good, that it would not matter, but I came back. Yes, and when I heard what you were doing, hiring Apache workers, standing up to Blackwood, I realized I had made a terrible mistake." Finch pulled out a folder from beneath his desk. "I never filed the fraudulent papers. They are here. I have been waiting for you to come back so I could destroy them properly." He laid the documents on the counter. Nathan recognized Blackwood's handwriting on the fabricated abandonment claim. "Why tell me this now?" Nathan asked. "Because what you are doing matters," Finch said simply. "My wife is Pima. Her people face the same threats as the Apache. If you can prove that different peoples can work together peacefully, maybe my children will have a better future. I cannot undo my weakness, but I can stop being part of the problem." Nathan studied the man's face, seeing genuine regret there. "What will you do now?" Finch took the fraudulent papers and methodically tore them into pieces. "I will file an official notation that your homestead is active and in good standing, that you have expanded operations with hired labor. If anyone questions your claim again, they will have to go through proper legal channels, and those take time. Years, sometimes." He met Nathan's eyes. "I cannot promise this will save you, but it will buy you time, and time is something you will need." Nathan felt a weight lift from his shoulders. "Thank you, Mr. Finch. I know that decision was not easy, easier than living with the alternative." Finch extended his hand. "Good luck, Mr. Thornhill. You are doing something important, something brave. Do not let them stop you." "That girl works for you?" Henderson asked as he tallied the purchases. "She does. She looks Apache. Her mother was. Her father was Mexican." Nathan kept his voice level, offering a lie that was close enough to truth to be believable. "She is a good worker." Henderson grunted, unconvinced but unwilling to challenge a paying customer. "That will be $18. Nathan paid in silver, money earned from his successful harvest. As he gathered the supplies, Henderson spoke again. "You hear about the new policy? The Army is offering $20 for every Apache brought into the reservation. Double that if they bring in a warrior who has been raiding." Nathan's hands stilled. "I had not heard that. Started last month. They want to clear the mountains by summer. Governor says too many hostiles are still out there making trouble." Most Apache are not hostile. They just want to be left alone. Henderson's expression hardened. You sound like one of those bleeding hearts who thinks savages deserve sympathy. They killed my brother in '73, ambushed his wagon train. I got no sympathy for any of them. Nathan picked up his supplies without responding. There was nothing to be gained by arguing. Men like Henderson had made up their minds long ago. No amount of evidence or reason would change them. Outside, Ayanna waited beside their wagon. She had overheard the conversation through the open door. Her face was carefully neutral, but Nathan saw the fear in her eyes. "We need to leave," she said quietly. "Now." They loaded the supplies quickly and drove to Marcus's trading post. Grey Wolf and the warriors were already there, looking troubled. Marcus stood with them, his weathered face grave. "What happened?" Nathan asked. Marcus answered. "Soldiers came through an hour ago. They are organizing a major sweep of the Chiricahua Range. 3 companies, nearly 200 men. They plan to move through systematically, searching every canyon and valley." "When?" Nathan's stomach tightened. 2 weeks, maybe less. Marcus looked at Grey Wolf. "You need to move your people. Get them somewhere the soldiers will not find them." "There is nowhere left," Grey Wolf said flatly. "We have been pushed back so many times. There are no safe places remaining in this territory." "Then you need to leave the territory," Nathan said. All eyes turned to him. "Go to Mexico, at least temporarily, until this sweep is finished." "Mexico is no better," one of the young warriors said in halting English. "Their soldiers hunt us too, but their territory is larger, more remote areas." Nathan turned to Grey Wolf. "How many people in your camp now?" 53. Grey Wolf's expression was bleak, including 22 children and 8 elders who cannot travel quickly. The numbers made the situation clear. They could not outrun soldiers, could not hide effectively with that many people leaving traces, could not fight against 200 armed men. "Bring them to my ranch," Nathan heard himself say. Everyone stared at him. Ayanna found her voice first. "Nathan, that is impossible. You cannot hide 53 people on your land. I do not plan to hide them." Nathan's mind was racing, forming a plan even as he spoke. "I plan to employ them, openly. If soldiers come, I tell them these are my workers, that I am running a large agricultural operation and need the labor." "They will never believe that," Grey Wolf said. "Maybe not. But they will have to prove otherwise." Nathan looked around at the skeptical faces. "My land is legally mine. I have the right to hire whoever I want. The soldiers can object, but unless they have proof of criminal activity, they cannot arrest everyone without cause." "This is madness," the young warrior said. "It is the only option," Nathan countered. "You said yourself there is nowhere safe to run. So we stop running. We stand our ground. Use the law to protect you instead of fleeing from it." Grey Wolf studied Nathan for a long moment. "If we do this, we put you in terrible danger. The army will not forget. Other settlers will hate you. You could lose everything." "I already lost everything once." Nathan's voice was steady. "I will not let it happen again. Not to you. Not to people who have become my friends." Ayanna stepped closer, her eyes searching his face. "You would do this? Risk your land, your freedom, possibly your life?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because it is right. Because you saved my life and I saved yours, and now we are bound together. Because I am tired of watching good people suffer because of evil policies." Nathan paused. "And because you have given me something I thought was lost forever. A reason to fight for tomorrow instead of just mourning yesterday." The words hung in the air. Marcus broke the silence with a low whistle. "Well, I will be damned. You have grown a spine since the last time I saw you, Thornhill." "Will you help?" Nathan asked. "If this happens, I will need allies. People who can testify that the Apache on my land are peaceful workers." Marcus scratched his beard. "I must be crazy, but yes, I will help. I cannot promise it will make a difference. But I will speak for you if it comes to that." Grey Wolf made his decision. "We will come. but not all at once. Small groups over several days. Make it look like workers arriving for employment rather than refugees seeking shelter. Smart, Nathan agreed, and we need to be ready to document everything. Keep records of who works where, what they are paid. Make it look as legitimate as possible. The plan took shape over the next hour. Marcus would help spread word that Nathan Thornhill was hiring workers for an expansion of his ranch. Gray Wolf would begin moving people in groups of 5 or 6, staggered over 10 days. Ayanna would serve as the primary translator and coordinator. It was risky, possibly suicidal, but it was also the only real chance they had. The journey back to the ranch was tense. Nathan kept expecting soldiers to appear, to question their business, to recognize Ayanna despite her disguise. But they made it home without incident. Over the next 2 weeks, Apache families began arriving. They came quietly, in the early morning or late evening when they were less likely to be observed. Nathan converted his barn into temporary housing, built additional shelters using lumber purchased from his now rapidly depleting savings. The ranch transformed into something resembling a small village. Children played in the yard while adults worked the fields or tended animals. Fires burned every evening, filling the air with the smell of cooking food and the sound of Apache songs. Nathan knew it could not last, knew that eventually soldiers would come, questions would be asked, and the fragile structure he had built would be tested to its limits. But for now, in these brief days of spring warmth and tentative hope, something remarkable was happening. 2 peoples who had been enemies were learning to live side by side, sharing labor and food and stories, building trust slowly, one interaction at a time. White-painted woman arrived with the last group. The old woman inspected the setup with a critical eye, then nodded approvingly. "You have done well," she said through Ayanna's translation. "My granddaughter chose wisely when she decided to trust you." Nathan felt his face warm. "I am not sure wisdom had much to do with it. More like desperation and hope. Those are often the same thing." The old woman smiled. "I am too old to run anymore. If I must make my last stand somewhere, this is a good place to do it. Let us hope it does not come to that." "It will come," White-painted woman said with certainty. "The question is whether we are ready when it does." She was right, of course. The confrontation arrived sooner than expected. 2 weeks after the last Apache family settled on Nathan's land, a column of soldiers appeared on the horizon. 20 men led by a captain Nathan did not recognize. They rode up to the ranch with weapons ready and suspicion written across every face. The captain dismounted, hand resting on his sidearm. "I am Captain William Fletcher, United States Army. This ranch is surrounded. We have reports of hostile Apache in this area. I need to search your property." Nathan stepped forward, keeping his hands visible and his voice calm. "You are welcome to look around, Captain, but I assure you there are no hostiles here. Only workers I have employed for the spring planting." Fletcher's eyes narrowed. "Workers? How many?" 51 at last count, plus myself." Nathan gestured toward the fields where Apache men and women were tending crops, deliberately continuing their work to demonstrate they were not a threat. "All documented. I have employment records if you would like to see them." "You expect me to believe you are employing 51 Apache?" Fletcher's voice dripped skepticism. "I expect you to believe evidence." Nathan kept his tone respectful but firm. "Every person here is working for fair wages. They are peaceful, they are productive, and they are under my protection as my employees." Fletcher motioned to his lieutenant. "Search every building. I want a count of every person on this property, ages, genders, whether they are armed." The soldiers spread out, moving through the ranch systematically. Nathan watched, heart pounding. Ayanna stood near the cabin door, her face composed but her hands clenched into fists. Gray Wolf and the other warriors had deliberately positioned themselves in the fields, working alongside women and children to make them appear less threatening. The search took an hour. Finally, Fletcher's lieutenant returned with his report. 51 Apache, sir. 22 children under age 12. 8 elderly. 15 adult women, 6 adult men. The men have hunting weapons but nothing military grade, no evidence of recent raiding or violence. Fletcher's jaw tightened. He knew what he was seeing contradicted the narrative of hostile savages that justified his orders, but he was not ready to concede. "Where did these people come from?" he demanded of Nathan. "Various camps in the mountains. They heard I was hiring workers and came seeking employment. And you just happened to hire 51 of them? I needed the labor. Harvest season requires many hands. The fact that they are Apache is irrelevant to their ability to work." Fletcher stepped closer, his voice dropping. "Do not play games with me, Thornhill. I know what you are doing. You are harboring fugitives, helping them avoid relocation to the reservation. I am employing workers on my own land." Nathan met his gaze steadily. "Unless you have evidence of criminal activity, which your own lieutenant just confirmed you do not, then these people have the right to work where they choose. The law requires all Apache to register at designated agencies, and I am certain all my workers are properly registered." Nathan was lying. He had no idea if any of them were registered, but Fletcher could not prove otherwise without checking records that might take weeks to access. The standoff stretched. Finally, Fletcher made a decision. "I am placing you under observation. My men will establish a camp 1 mile from here. We will monitor your operation. If I find evidence that you are supporting hostiles or harboring fugitives, I will arrest everyone on this property. Are we clear?" "Perfectly clear." Nathan forced himself to remain calm. "You are welcome to observe as long as you like. You will see only peaceful people doing honest work." Fletcher remounted his horse. "This is not over, Thornhill. Men like you who betray their own kind to help savages always get what is coming to them." The soldiers rode away to establish their observation post. As soon as they were out of sight, Nathan's knees nearly buckled. Ayanna rushed to his side, steadying him. "You stood up to them," she said, wonder in her voice. "You protected us." "I did what had to be done." Nathan looked around at the Apache families watching from doorways and fields. "Now we have to prove I was telling the truth. We have to show them that this can work." "It will work," Grey Wolf said, approaching from the fields. "Because we will make it work. All of us. Together." The weeks that followed were the most challenging of Nathan's life. Soldiers watched constantly, looking for any excuse to intervene. Settlers visited with barely concealed hostility, warning Nathan about the consequences of his choices. Even friendly neighbors like Marcus faced pressure to distance themselves from the ranch. But the work continued. Crops were planted, animals were tended, children played. Life persisted in the face of opposition. And slowly, grudgingly, attitudes began to shift. A few settlers noticed that Nathan's crops were thriving while theirs struggled. They approached Grey Wolf quietly, asking about the techniques his people used. Some hired Apache workers themselves, drawn by practical need more than any moral enlightenment. It was not acceptance, not yet, but it was acknowledgement that coexistence might be possible. 3 months after the soldiers established their observation post, Captain Fletcher returned. His expression was different this time, less hostile, more calculating. "Thornhill, I need to speak with you privately." They walked away from the cabins, out of earshot. Fletcher spoke without preamble. "My superiors want this situation resolved. You are creating complications for the reservation policy. I am following the law." Nathan kept his voice neutral. "Technically, yes." Fletcher's tone suggested grudging respect. "You have found a loophole, exploited it effectively, but that cannot continue indefinitely." "Why not? If it is working, if these people are productive members of society, why does it matter where they live or who they work for?" Fletcher was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that surprised Nathan. "Because it proves the reservation policy is not necessary. If Apache can live and work peacefully on private land, the government cannot justify the expense of maintaining reservations or the brutality of forced relocations." He met Nathan's eyes. "You are threatening a system that powerful men have invested in. That makes you dangerous, more dangerous than any warrior with a rifle. "So what happens now?" Nathan asked. "That depends." Fletcher glanced back toward the ranch. "My orders are to find a reason to shut you down, to arrest you or drive you out. But I have been watching for 3 months. I see no reason, just people working land and trying to survive." He paused. "I fought Apache for 5 years, lost good men to their raids. I have every reason to hate them. But watching this place, I see something different. I see what peace might actually look like, and I am not sure I want to destroy that." Nathan hardly dared breathe. "What are you saying?" "I am saying my report will state that the Apache on your property are peaceful workers posing no threat. I am saying I will recommend the observation post be withdrawn." He held up a hand. "That does not mean you are safe. Other officers may not be so reasonable. Politicians certainly will not be. But you have bought yourself time." "Thank you," Nathan said quietly. "I know that decision could not have been easy." Fletcher's expression hardened again. "Do not thank me. If any of your workers are caught raiding, if there is any violence connected to this ranch, I will come back and burn it to the ground myself. Understand?" "I understand." The captain mounted his horse. "You are either the bravest man I have ever met or the most foolish. I have not decided which. But I hope, for everyone's sake, that this works." He rode away. The observation post was dismantled the next day. That evening, the ranch held a celebration. Not loud or public, but meaningful. Apache and the one white man who had gambled everything on believing coexistence was possible. Nathan stood on his familiar hill as the sun set, looking down at the graves of his first family and the community of his second chance. Ayanna joined him, as she so often did now. "Margaret would have loved this," Nathan said. "The noise and the life. She always said the ranch was too quiet. Perhaps she sent me to fix that." Ayanna's tone was light, but her eyes were serious. Nathan turned to look at her fully. "Over these months I have come to depend on you, not just for translation or mediation, but for your presence, your wisdom, your strength." He paused, gathering courage. "I know I have no right to ask. I know you could return to your people, find an Apache man who understands your culture in ways I never will. But I am asking anyway. Will you stay? Not as a worker or a translator, but as a partner in building whatever this place is becoming?" Ayanna's eyes glistened. "My father used to say that family is not just blood. It is the people who stand with you when standing is difficult. You have stood with my people when no other white man would. That makes you family already." She took his hand. "I will stay. Not because you need me or because I owe you, but because I choose to. Because this ranch has become my home as much as any Apache camp. And because you have become more to me than I ever expected." They stood together as the sun disappeared and stars emerged. In the cabin below, white-painted woman told stories to Nahato and the other children. Gray Wolf and the warriors discussed the next day's work. Families settled in for the night. It was not perfect. The world beyond the ranch remained hostile. Threats still loomed. But here, in this small corner of Arizona, something new was growing. A community built not on shared ancestry but shared commitment. Not on tradition, but on choice. Nathan thought of the shell necklace Ayanna had given him so many months ago. Her father's necklace, meant for protection. It had protected him. But more than that, it had connected him to a new path forward. The past could not be changed. Margaret and Thomas were still gone. The grief still lived in him. But alongside it now was something else. Purpose. Connection. Hope. He had come to this land broken and alone, determined only to survive. Now he stood as part of something larger, a bridge between worlds, proof that enemies could become allies, that loss could transform into legacy. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. There would always be opposition to overcome, prejudices to confront, systems to resist. But tonight, under the vast Arizona sky, Nathan Thornhill felt something he had not experienced in years. Peace. Not the peace of ending, but the peace of beginning. Not the quiet of the grave, but the purposeful silence before dawn. Ayanna squeezed his hand. Ready for whatever comes next? Nathan smiled, looking toward the future with clear eyes. Ready. Together they walked down the hill toward the lights of home. Behind them, the oak trees stood sentinel over the past. Before them, a community gathered around fires, sharing food and stories, and the fragile hope that tomorrow might be better than today. But the story did not end there. The scene shifted, like pages turning in a book of memories. The desert faded, the fires dimmed, and once more, it was 1920. Nathan Thornhill, now 76 years old, sat on his porch with his grandson Samuel beside him. The boy's eyes were wide, filled with wonder at the tale he had just heard. "So you and grandmother Ayanna built all this?" Samuel gestured toward the ranch, which had grown over the decades into a thriving community. Apache and white families lived and worked side by side, just as Nathan and Gray Wolf had dreamed. "We built it together," Nathan corrected gently. "Your grandmother, Gray Wolf, Nahato, white-painted woman, even Red Hawk eventually. It was never just me. And the soldiers? They never came back?" "Oh, they came back many times." Nathan smiled, touching the shell necklace he still wore after 42 years. "But each time we stood our ground, showed them we were following the law. Eventually they stopped trying. By then, other ranchers had started hiring Apache workers too. It became normal." Samuel looked at the leather bracelet on his grandfather's wrist, understanding now what it meant. "Will you teach me?" he asked. "About the Apache ways? About building bridges instead of walls?" Nathan's eyes glistened. He placed his weathered hand on the boy's shoulder. "I will teach you everything I know. But first, let me introduce you properly to your heritage," he called out toward the house. A moment later, Ayanna emerged, her hair now silver but her bearing still strong at 68. Nahato walked beside her, a man of 51 now, with children of his own. Gray Wolf had passed 5 years prior, but his son carried on his father's legacy. "Samuel," Nathan said, motioning to his grandson to stand, "you are part of two worlds, Apache and white. You carry the best of both. Never forget that. Never be ashamed of either." The boy stood tall, looking between his grandfather and grandmother. "I won not, grandfather. I promise." As the sun set over the Chiricahua Mountains one more time, 3 generations sat together. The past, present, and future united in a single moment. The legacy was not just land or buildings. It was the choice to see beyond differences, to build instead of destroy, to hope instead of hate. And it would continue long after Nathan Thornhill's time had passed. The desert wind carried their voices into the gathering dusk. 4 dozen families, Apache and white, preparing evening meals and settling in for the night. Children playing games that blended traditions from both cultures. A community that should not have existed, but did. Because 42 years ago, a broken man had chosen to save a dying woman. And that single choice had changed everything.